done that in America with the baseball.
talkSPORT Sports Update, powered by the Nissan Van range, helping business owners to work better and live better. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van centre.
With your headlines at 10:01. I'm Nick Ellaby. Good morning. Former England fast bowler talkSPORT Steve Harmison wants a protective arm thrown around Ben Stokes and Gus Atkinson as the pair are investigated over an altercation in a nightclub.
Because there's a duty of care from a team point of view to make sure their mental well-being is right, because we don't know the facts. And there's a lot of things going on here, but there's two lads here who I think need looking after from a team point of view. So if he has made a mistake, a hand will be held up.
It's understood a Saracens Academy rugby player threw a punch at bowler Gus Atkinson in the small hours of Monday morning. England's cricketers are still under a midnight curfew to combat allegations of a drinking culture. 2 days out from the World Cup, and Iran's FA says the country's ticket allegation has been revoked, leaving supporters who've already made plans unable to attend matches. As the US-Israeli war with Iran continues, Iran's footballers are staying in Mexico and flying in for games. Meanwhile, breaking news, former UEFA President Michel Platini has filed a criminal complaint against Gianni Infantino. Platini claims Infantino worked to exclude him in the race to become FIFA president. Now, West Ham's billionaire co-owner David Sullivan is denying allegations of sexually exploitative and predatory behaviour. They date back to the 1980s when Sullivan was the owner of the Daily and Sunday Sport. Former glamour model Sasha Wall claims Sullivan asked her if she wanted to be special friends when she auditioned in his bedroom in Essex.
I ran into the ensuite and grabbed my dress. Gone for the door. At this point, I realised the door's locked. So I raised my voice and I was like, open the door now. And he was like, all right, keep your knickers on.
Sullivan says he stepped down as West Ham chairman to fight what he calls the false allegations. We're told Crystal Palace is set to appoint former Lens boss Pierre Sage as their new manager, and we understand Newcastle are closing in on an £18 million deal for Rennes keeper Evan Jaouan. More at talksport.com.
talkSPORT News.
A man's in hospital with serious injuries after a brutal and shocking attack in Belfast, and social media restrictions for under-16s are expected to come in very soon. Amelia's back at past.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. With over 600 centres across the UK, most of which open 7 days a week, we're always there when you need us. QuickFit. Drive away happy every time.
Sunny spells and showers. Some areas staying dry. Showers most frequent in the north and west. Wet across central and eastern Scotland as well. Feeling cool today.
Get ready to get the ultimate football fan winning feeling with talkSPORT Win.
Because this summer, you and a mate could be jetting off to watch England versus Panama in New Jersey live at the FIFA World Cup 2026 with Adidas, including tickets, flights, accommodation and more.
Go to talksport.com/win to enter now, and you could be soaking up the incredible atmosphere at the FIFA World Cup 2026. For the chance to win every football fan's trip of a lifetime, enter now at talksport.com/win.
Good morning, this is White and Jordan with me, Adam Catterall, in for Jim White, alongside the magnificent Simon Jordan. This morning we have a very busy show lined up for you. We'll be discussing the future of West Ham following a shocking Panorama documentary which aired last night surrounding their co-owner David Sullivan. We'll also be asking whether this is the least accessible World Cup ever and who's to blame. Is it Trump or is it FIFA? Meantime, Steve Clarke's been branded unprofessional by the Norway manager. Are Scotland getting a little bit too carried away? Could Ben Stokes be acted as England captain? And is Enzo Maresca really the right fit for Manchester City? Plus, from 12 o'clock, with me being here, we're going to be bringing you a very special boxing hour. We're going to be joined by Boxer CEO Ben Shalom, and Lerone Richards is also going to be joining us in the studio following one of the most farcical decisions that we've seen in recent times in a boxing ring, following his WBA interim light heavyweight title fight, which he lost via split decision. We'll be welcoming him to the studio a little bit later on. So much to get stuck into this morning with White and Jordan.
100% engagement.
Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
As well as all that, listening to us, you can catch us on the talkSPORT YouTube channels as well as we watch along. Whatever you watch, we will be there. Good morning, Mr. Jordan. How are you?
Morning. I'm okay. I wanted to get my last bit of blighty before I disappear across the pond and get inundated with septic tanks for about 3.5 weeks.
Where are they basing you? What location?
New York City. We're in New York for 3.5 weeks. Jim and the other guys are already on their way over there. I'm coming tomorrow, and we start doing shows on Thursday morning. And I'm doing Fox News on Thursday morning at 6:50. There you go.
Big time.
Media tart. And what's happened to me, Adam? Lost all context, lost all perspective.
How many weeks are you doing the full hit?
No, 3.5. Which is normally what I do is I get fed up after about 10 minutes and want to come back. Qatar was great because I could play a lot of paddle with my friends, like all the Nasser Khelafi and all that sort of gang.
Yeah.
Germany was okay because I could come back in the middle of it. America, I'm over there for 3.5 weeks, so I shall become stir crazy. But listen, it's the greatest show on earth. In, I think, one of the best countries. It's got all its challenges like all of them have.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting and fascinating to see all the turns of the wheel in terms of what we see going off the field. That's my particular area of expertise in terms of talking about the bigger subjects and talking about some of the issues that come. But also the intrigue of seeing whether Thomas Tuchel can do what Southgate couldn't and take this group of players that have been close and missed opportunities, I think, over the last 2 or 3 tournaments into a team that can win a competition. Then you've got all the overlaying aspects of climate and challenges that will come into play. But it all brings intrigue, and the Americans obviously live in a world where they think the NFL is the biggest sports, and they're just about to get a rude awakening, I suspect.
Indeed. It all gets underway on Thursday, all live on talkSPORT, and as Simon said there, he'll be across there with Jim, bringing you this fabulous show at a later time, I believe. I think it's 1 o'clock rather than 10 o'clock.
We're on for 8 o'clock in the morning till 11 in New York time, which is 1 till 4 here.
Yeah, there you go. So make sure you're on that from the start of the World Cup on Thursday. Now, I'm sure that this didn't pass you by. Last night, the BBC aired a panorama documentary titled Predator, the Billionaire Football Boss. A little bit of a prior warning before we cover this story. It does include descriptions of alleged sexual misconduct. So if you have children in the car or feel uncomfortable, you may want to turn this over now. Multiple women have accused billionaire businessman and West Ham co-owner David Sullivan of abusing his power and preying on them for sex. In some cases when they were teenagers. talkSPORT's newsreader Toby Gillis spoke to one of our journalists behind the discovery, the Times' Charlotte Wace, yesterday.
Previously, David Sullivan was a very successful figure in the adult entertainment industry. So he started out selling glossy prints, moved on to his own magazines. And in his late 20s and early 30s, he had this very fast-growing, increasingly explicit pornography empire. And so he had adult magazines, including Playbirds and Parade. He then went on to launch the Sunday Sport and followed by the Daily Sport. So these were tabloids that became notorious for running made-up stories. So things like planes being found on the moon and aliens turning a boy into a fish finger. But sex was the main selling point. So the papers were filled with photos of topless women. So lots of kind of glamour stars, page 3 models, that sort of thing.
And that's all relevant, of course, because it's in his role as a newspaper boss rather than any specific link to football that the allegations that the paper and BBC Panorama are bringing now. Can you just give us the basis of these allegations?
So we are including accounts from 7 women, and they were all models or aspiring models who met David Sullivan through his ownership of the Daily Sport and the Sunday Sport. So just to sort of explain a little bit about these women. So one woman who we were calling Florence said she felt forced to have sex with Sullivan at his home in Essex when she did not want to. Several who shared their accounts accused Sullivan of abusing his power to try and get models to have sex with him. One claimed he offered her preferential treatment if she would be one of his special friends. She says that when she refused his advances and tried to leave his house, or tried to leave the bedroom, she says she found the door of the room they were in was locked. Another claimed Sullivan instructed her to strip to her underwear before telling her, if you want to get anywhere in this industry, you need to sleep with me.
And some of the women that have brought these allegations at the time were younger than 18, weren't they?
So we have included the account of someone who was 17 when she appeared in the paper. She said that around that time, that Sullivan, who at that point was more than 30 years her senior, approached her at a competition and said he could make her a star if she gave him oral sex or words to that effect. She says she declined his offer. And separately to that, we can, as part of our reporting, we can reveal that Sullivan has previously admitted having a sexual relationship with a 16 or 17-year-old in the 90s when he was in his 40s. And in 2003, paying for sex with a 16 or 17-year-old was made illegal. Obviously, it wasn't in the 1990s.
Can you talk to us about the investigation that you have been involved in? What's it been like? How long has it taken? And what have you learned about the character that is David Sullivan?
So this investigation has been going on for 2 years, and I stress it's a really big sort of team of reporters that have worked from this, both from the Times and the BBC. So a real sort of team investigation, and certainly we felt it was fair to describe this as a pattern of behaviour that we sort of found as we continued our research. And it sounded to us as if it was quite well known. So, for instance, one former model agent said it was not a secret. Everyone knew if you wanted to get in the paper, you had to have sex with David. It was common knowledge. This agent claimed he would pre-warn models about what might be expected of them. And then looking back, the agent said it felt mucky and uncomfortable. Obviously, we were approaching dozens of people who have featured in the newspapers over the years, and sometimes when reporters contacted them, the models would know exactly why, or have a good idea of why we were getting in touch, and they might, in some instances, raise Sullivan's name actually without us doing so first.
Before we get on to some of the sort of football authorities and of course West Ham, which we do have to mention, there have been two police forces involved in this in the past. What happened with them?
So Essex Police and the Metropolitan Police are understood collectively to have received disclosures about Sullivan's contact from at least 8 women over the years, but should stress that Sullivan has not been charged in relation to their allegations, and there have been some instances where Essex Police has sought advice from the CPS and has made the decision not to take further action. We are aware that people have made these disclosures to the police over the years.
And of course, it does beg the question about what football knew about these allegations. And the FA, I think I'm right in saying, have had an investigation into his alleged conduct.
Yes, the FA have previously launched a safeguarding inquiry, sort of based on allegations about Sullivan. Yeah, which we have been told.
Charlotte West there speaking to Toby Gillis on this breaking story regarding David Sullivan. As it stands, these are all allegations, and David Sullivan categorically denies the claims. Now, here's the interesting bit from our point of view when we're talking about football. He still owns 38.8% of West Ham United. Here's the question I want to throw to you, because you're the man for this. Could the independent football regulator force David Sullivan to sell his stake?
I don't see how. I mean, there's one thing listen, first and foremost, sleazy porn baron acts like a sleazy porn baron 40 years ago. Where's the reveal? The police have looked at this. Whilst you might not like this behaviour, and I don't particularly like it, and I don't particularly like David Sullivan, and I know him better than most people in terms of this conversation and people that we're talking to that are listening to this show. But these are allegations that the police have investigated. So for whatever reason, they're coming to the surface. And you look at some of the journalistic stuff that went into that Panorama documentary, it was like a child producing a TV show. You question and you interrogate. I know you can't interrogate quote-unquote so-called victims, but you do have to work harder when someone turns around and says, I'm going to a business meeting, but I didn't want to take my agent with me because I didn't take my mate to a meeting. It's not your mate, it's an agent. You bring your agent to a meeting if you're having a meeting. That doesn't excuse Sullivan's behaviour if he behaved in an inappropriate fashion. Where the football regulator comes in, I'm not entirely sure, because he hasn't been charged with anything. Mm-hmm. And whilst you have to have safekeeping rules around sport, and of course, people call, Sullivan's been in charge of a football club that has young kids in the academy and so on and so forth. We can go to the extremes of the conversation, but what we're talking about is inappropriate, unseemly behaviour. We're not talking at this moment in time about illegal behaviour, and because he hasn't been charged with anything. So where do they go? Has he got controlling influence over the football club? He's resigned from his position of vice chairman for his own reasons, and perhaps whether that's an advisable move or not, that's for David Sullivan to work his way through. But I don't see where the IFR goes with this, besides making a statement that we're in the business of making sure that our job is seen to be visible. He's a shareholder. How do they force him to sell his shares? How do they tell him what the share price of that scenario is? I'm assuming he might want to sell his shares anyway, because if he's no longer involved in the football club on a day-to-day basis, besides being a shareholder, albeit if you're a shareholder, you have significant influence in the same way that the ridiculous argument the Lewis family are making is that it was all Daniel Levy. You were the majority shareholders, it must be you too. So I don't see where, besides putting themselves in a framework of showing this is the IFR, we're here, we do things properly, we're going to make sure that everything's done properly, I'm not entirely sure what they can and can't do. Now, is unseemly behaviour, albeit not charged with an illegality, considered to be a breach of the fit and proper persons test? Some people would argue that it categorically should be. But David Sullivan's been a football club owner for 30-odd years, and these allegations date back 30, 40 years, and as yet are unproven allegations. So where do you go in this society? Where do you go in terms of, I believe entirely and emphatically that people are innocent until proven guilty. I also believe in the right of a victim to be heard. So I have the balance in my mind's eye, but it's very easy to say things. Sullivan pushes back very hard against it. But again, I go to the point. Look at the society we lived in. We had newspapers, including his own, that were running a competition to show 16-year-old kids that they're going to turn 16-year-old and show their boobs. That was the society that we lived in 40 years ago. We don't live in that society now, so we have to be very careful how we overlay the principles and standards of what happened 40, 50 years ago over today's standards. And we do a little bit too much of it because it suits people to serve out particular agendas. Sullivan is not going to be involved that much with West Ham anymore. I don't think it diminishes West Ham in any shape or form.
You don't think it affects the brand or anything?
Or does it diminish it any more by having a sanctioned Man City, when Tiewan Archer was considered to be an absolute criminal when he owned Man City and was booted out the door for all the things that he did and replaced with Sheikh Mansour. Let's not get into this virtuous circle of, oh, hang on a second, it diminishes the brand. Because West Ham's brand has been diminished more by being relegated to the Championship than by David Sullivan, a well-established, out in the open, once upon a time, who said, if you can't take sweets from the sweet shop, what can you do? Palm Baron, where's the reveal? Where's the surprise? I'm not defending him because, as I've just stated, I don't particularly like him. But the fact of the matter is, some of this stuff, to me, needs a great deal more substantiation rather than people jumping on the bandwagon and making noise for their own benefit.
As this story develops, you'll hear more throughout the course of the day on talkSPORT and obviously in the news as well. We're going to be talking World Cup in a moment. How accessible, inaccessible is this World Cup? We'll get stuck into it next here on talkSPORT.
You know, like, without Harry Kane, we are screwed.
He dropped quite deep again. I don't mind.
You know what's annoying me, right? And I've been seeing it on social media, right? People winding me up already, all right? If I hear England fans coming on here moaning about Harry Kane dropping deep, I swear I'm going to lose my head.
I totally agree.
I'm going to lose my head. The guy has scored 50 goals this season.
61.
He scored 61 goals.
In all competitions.
He scored 61 goals, right? And people are moaning about him dropping deep. When are people going to understand that is how Harry Kane plays?
Yep.
Like, that is his game. He drops deep, he gets in pockets, he's hard to pick up, and then he'll find the box.
He starts the build-up.
Yeah, and it's like, come on, guys. I don't want to be hearing Harry Kane's dropping deep. Harry Kane's dropping deep. Like, we know now that is his game. That is how he plays. He scored 60 goals.
As long as we fill the space that he drops out.
Well, that's why you have Rashford and that's why you have Saka.
That's what you need, runners from deep. You do.
I hear people say Ivan Toney should start. We should start Ivan Toney because, he stays up there. We need someone who's going to, lead the line. Mate, drop me out. Drop me out. It does my head in.
No, I'm totally in agreement with you, mate. That's what he does. That's his game. And under Tuchel at Bayern Munich, he played that way, and he's mastered his craft. Look, you obviously, when the ball is built up in the wider areas, you want Kane in the middle. Obviously in the high and wide.
Yeah.
Because he can do the most damage.
Well, he scored a great goal with the ball. He got his glancing header. He's just got magic in his body. He just knows where to score goals from anywhere.
He does.
It just winds me up. I don't want to hear it. If he's dropping deep. He's hot and he's probably gonna sit in that little number 10 role every now and then. Do you know what I mean? As long as you get bodies past him.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Rashford and that and runners in beyond. Like, just let Harry Kane play his game, because without him
Get ready to get the ultimate football fan winning feeling with talkSPORT Win.
Because this summer, you and a mate could be jetting off to watch England versus Panama in New Jersey live at the FIFA World Cup 2026 with Adidas, including tickets, flights, accommodation and more.
Go to talksport.com/win to enter now, and you could be soaking up the incredible atmosphere at the FIFA World Cup 2026. For the chance to win every football fan's trip of a lifetime, enter now at talksport.com/win.
Morning, you're listening to talkSPORT. It is White and Jordan. I'm Adam Catterall. Mr. White is in the sky at the moment, so on his way to America, getting himself ready for a fantastic World Cup
Sounds
broadcast.
like he shuffles off this mortal call. He's in the sky, he's gone, he's passed away, he's on the other side.
No. He's flying to the other side of the pond, getting ready for some fantastic programmes that he's going to be bringing you a little bit later on this week here on talkSPORT. And with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about this World Cup, because there is a question circulating amongst fans at the moment about this being the most restrictive and inaccessible World Cup ever. I'm sure you've seen this story. It's been reported in our news over the last 24 hours that Somali referee Omar Artan, who was scheduled to referee at this summer's World Cup, has been denied entry into the US. He was elected as the best African referee at 2025 CAF Awards, and he was revoked and sent home. FIFA.
We've seen some of the standards of African refereeing, by the way, just out of curiosity, in the AFCON.
He's a decent one, though.
Good.
He's a decent
when I first heard this news, but wanted to be overly flippant, I saw some of the refereeing standards and I thought, well, maybe that's not such a great loss, with all due respect to the fella.
FIFA did issue a statement saying that FIFA is not involved in host country immigration processes, including visa adjudications, and has been informed by authorities that Mr. Artan's status will not be changed at present. Now, before I get Sam's thoughts on this, let's look back at what FIFA President Gianni Infantino said in 2025 regarding inclusivity and his vision for ensuring that the 2026 FIFA World Cup will be a tournament that welcomes and unites people from all backgrounds.
I think it's important to clarify this because there is a lot of misconception out there. Everyone will be welcome in Canada, Mexico, and the United States for the World Cup next year, because we want to unite the world, and we will unite the world in America next year. The world needs occasions of unity, of bringing teams together, bringing people together, bringing fans together. Again, everyone will be welcome. Be positive. You will see there will be a great, great celebration of the greatest FIFA World Cup ever.
Gianni Infantino speaking at the back end of last year regarding inclusivity. There's also a report coming out of Al Jazeera today stating that Iranian fans have had their visas revoked, so therefore they will not be allowed to attend World Cup matches for their games. So the ticket allocation has been revoked from FIFA. It feels like a little bit of a mess. I was speaking to a few fans, England fans actually, that are out there in the States, and they were talking about ticket pricing. I think that's been well documented on your show as well, mate.
Yeah.
Who is responsible for this? Who's responsible for all this mess? Because it feels like it's a little bit of a mess.
It depends if you think it's a mess. I mean, every World Cup that comes
Does
around...
it not feel like a mess to you?
Not particularly. It feels like the football is becoming a very expensive business, and there's no surprise that the FIFA World Cup is an expensive proposition. It's an opportunity to generate huge amounts of money, hopefully for the best reasons, which is for the infrastructure of sport around the world. But notwithstanding it moves us away from the ideal of what people really wanted, which is rattles and people coming out of factories at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and celebrating football. Those days have gone. We're in a business of sport now, and business of sport is very expensive and a lot of money is generated. So unfortunately, tragically, something gets lost in the way. And I hear all the arguments, and I'm for all the arguments about making it accessible. We've got 6.5 million tickets for this World Cup, which means probably 4 million unique people are going to watch World Cup games over the 6.5 million tickets that are available, because people will obviously get to see more than one game because of their position. That means that less than 0.001% of the world's population gets to see it. It's a tragedy, but it's the way that it goes. These are premium events. Now, going to the accessibility of the argument, people in the pub aren't sitting around in the pubs talking about accessibility. We are. The media are. We're creating conversations to be able to confect outrage, to be able to create content. Most people accept it. They accept the reality of the circumstances that these premium games, these premium tournaments have a caveat, which means that ultimately they're beyond the reach of most people. That doesn't make it right. I'm not arguing for the right and wrong of it. I'm putting the pragmatic reality of it. I do not know, and at this moment in time, I'm not sure that we do know, the reason why this referee wasn't allowed in the country. If he didn't meet the visa requirements... He hasn't met
the vetting requirements, is what I'm
told. So that's not a mess. That's an issue from his side, and it's an issue from the people that represent him. As far as the Iranians are concerned, with due respect to whether you like it or you don't like it, the US is at war with Iran. It's hardly a surprise that you are not going to particularly want Iranian supporters coming into the country, despite the proclamation at the time, with the circumstances that Infantino was orchestrating and illustrating, that we want it to be the most inclusive World Cup you could possibly be, and it will be available to everybody. But there are exceptions. If you don't meet your visa requirements, and if you're at war with a country, those are possibly reasonable exceptions. You've now got a World Cup that's got 48 teams rather than 32. So already you're making it more accessible.
Yeah.
So there are lots of pros and cons. What we are doing is we're doing what media usually does, which is find a reason to find something other than the football to talk about. And I quite like that, because I don't want to spend my entire time talking about who plays left back for Costa Rica. But I get the parameters of every tournament comes up, whether it was Russia, whether it was South Africa, the stadiums weren't going to be built, whether it was Russia because of the nature of that country's environment and the way that they live, whether it was Qatar because of the confected outrage from the West that was lecturing countries across the world about how they should conduct themselves in society whilst having no convictions of our own. And all those things come in front of it, and at the end of it, you get a really good tournament. I think, despite the geography, despite the issues surrounding some of the dislike and the Trump derangement syndrome and what's going on with American policies, I still think we're going to see a feast of football. We're going to see a tournament that's going to be probably as good as we've ever seen before. And if we don't, then we can have all those recriminations. But I want to go into this with a half-full glass, not a half-empty one.
What are you at with the amount of teams, obviously, this year being included? Obviously, it's
I don't like
extended.
it. Listen, to go to the argument of inclusivity, they're just giving another 16 teams an opportunity to be able to develop football. But
does it diminish the tournament, though?
Yes, I think it does. But then if you listen to... I had a couple of years ago, I had a long conversation with Arsene Wenger because he wanted to move the World Cup into every 2 years. And I say that takes away the scarcity, and scarcity sells. And all of a sudden you take away the lure and the luster of this particular tournament. His belief is that the wider you can spread the message, the more players that can be developed around the world, the better it is for the ecosystem, which means all the best clubs can't snaffle all the best players. You've got a wider pool of talent. And if you can make that bigger and broader and wider, you've got a better ecosystem. And there's some merit to that argument. But I'm not sitting here waiting with bated breath to see Cape Verde versus Saudi Arabia. And neither are most people, besides perhaps the inhabitants of those two countries. And that's the downside. And the tournament probably really won't start. When you've got a tournament, which obviously helps the Scots, that can get you in a situation where you finish third in your group and only 2 people that finish third can't qualify, you've got very little competitive jeopardy from the outset. But once you get into the real tournament and you start to see the noise erupt, and the Americans are well primed for football, not soccer, football, right?
Yeah.
They're well primed for it. I've spent a bit of time over there looking at their structures, looking at their MLS, spent some time with Beckham's Inter Miami, understand the sport over there, put a team over there 20 years when I put Palace USA over there. This is a sport that's going to pop and pop big in America. And if you think that the Americans aren't going to come and play as a domestic league, despite amalgamates with either the South American leagues or the Asian leagues, which it will do in my view, the Premier League will have a major commercial rival, because you cannot ignore a sport that's got 6 billion fans around the world. The NFL is a travelling circus because it needs to be. The football, in its purest format, which is what we are proffering to the Americans in 2 days' time, is a global sport that has such enormous reach. I normally criticise Infantino for his overstatements, but when he talks about this industry being a $5 trillion a year industry, I think he's undercooking it. The business of sport, or the business of football, is bigger than GDPs of massive countries. This is and then you think about all the other industries that spin off it: hospitality, betting, merchandise. It is scale upon scale, so it's right into the Americans' sweet spot.
You mentioned Scotland a moment or two ago.
Tragically, yes. It'll be a moment or two before we're not mentioning them again, because they'll be out, hopefully.
I'm sure it's not passed you by that they cancelled a late friendly with the Norwegians. So the next question that we're going to ask on the show is, was Steve Clarke unprofessional, as it has been claimed by the Norwegian manager, or was he well within his right? Stick with us. We'll get stuck into it next on talkSPORT.
He's the sort of player, Andy, that you can't really look at age, because he could play at this level for another 4 or 5 years at least.
Do you think that long?
Yeah, I do.
31, you think he could be playing?
Doesn't rely on his pace.
No, he doesn't, but it's very rare you get great players. Even look at Mo Salah, right? Last season,
Relying on
before
his
last
pace.
was... Yeah,
you know
well,
what I mean?
I did look at Salah and thought his pace had gone. His just whole game went all of a sudden overnight.
I think when I watched him, he didn't look as quick, but I feel like Bruno Fernandes, do you know what I mean? You'll find a position for him, even if his legs do go a little bit. He's just that talented. His passing range, mate. Do you know what I mean? Set pieces.
Reported has a £57 million release clause for European clubs. That means he can't throw him if they go to Man City. Should the likes of Real Madrid be all over that? Is that a bargain?
I would. If I'm buying Munich, Real Madrid, any club, maybe not PSG, that they've got a very good midfield. But if I'm Manchester United, I'm saying not a chance. 60 million, 70 million, I'll say no. I feel like he's that good to what Manchester United have done in the last season we just had, and going forward, who are you going to buy to replace him?
Yeah. Well, my view earlier on was get the 57, put 43 to it, and go out and get Elliot Anderson. And then you're starting again because he's a young kid.
Of course, yeah. But Elliot Anderson, Bruno Fernandes, 2 different players.
Yeah, no, I know that.
Do you know what I mean? You need to get Elliot Anderson as well as keeping Bruno Fernandes. And how much money will it cost you if you sold Bruno Fernandes? You might get 57 million, but maybe you miss out on Champions League next season.
Point. Yeah.
So
this was, just to remind you, this was Bruno's quote last November. He said, from the club side, I felt a bit of...
Ben Stokes' future as England captain is in the balance after an altercation with a young rugby player in a nightclub following the Test win over New Zealand. talkSPORT's Steve Harmison says we must wait for the full facts.
It could just be 2 lads, wrong place, wrong time, broke a curfew out a little bit longer. And if that's the case, I mean, we've all done it.
England's cricketers are still under a midnight curfew following allegations of a team drinking culture. It's understood a Saracens academy player threw a punch at bowler Gus Atkinson, who was with Stokes in a nightclub early on Monday morning. Now, West Ham's billionaire co-owner David Sullivan categorically denies allegations of sexually exploitative behaviour. They date back to the 1980s when he was the owner of Daily and Sunday Sport newspapers. Former glamour model Sasha Wall says she auditioned for David Sullivan in his bedroom in Essex.
Then he just turns around to me and goes, "Do you know who?" and says a model's name. And I say, "Yeah." He went, "Well, she's one of my special friends. Would you like to be one of my special friends?"
Sullivan has stepped down as West Ham chairman to fight what he calls the false allegations. We're hearing Crystal Palace are set to appoint Pierre Sarge as their new manager. With Lens, Sarge won the club's first ever French Cup and finished second in Ligue 1. There is more at talkSPORT.com.
Morning, you're listening to talkSPORT. It is White and Jordan. I'm Adam Catterall, in for Jim White, alongside Simon Jordan. A little bit later on in the programme, we are going to get stuck into a little bit of boxing chat, as Ben Shalom's going to be joining us in the studio to announce his new broadcast deal with DAZN. And also, Laurent Richards is going to be in the studio as well, following his fight last week, which was, to say, controversial when we're talking about a decision. He's doing it.
Do you think, Adam, we're ever going to get to a point where the quality of... I mean, I remember going to the Evander Holyfield Lennox Lewis fight in Madison Square Garden in 1999, and that was all over the front of pages of the New York Post as an absolute scandal. Mm-hmm. And ironically, I thought that actually Holyfield won the second fight, but notwithstanding that, do you think we're going to get to a point where these controversies, because there's so much more jeopardy. I know that decisions in football make differences to people's lives and teams get relegated and so on and so forth, but literally, in fighting terms, people lose real outcomes rather than individual games and moments in time. Do you think we're ever going to get to a point where technology and quality of refereeing and unification of standards across all the governing bodies...
You've just said it. You've just said the main thing. It's about a universal scoring criteria of which boxing doesn't have. You've got people all working off different hymn sheets, and therefore you're never going to get to a full conclusion. You need a universal scoring criteria.
But is it always going to be that boxing has more subjectivity than any other sport? Because, you know, you're talking about...
Yeah, but it doesn't need to be, does it? You can actually say this is how we score a fight.
Based upon how people fight, in terms of what people like in a fight.
Well, you need an overriding umbrella to come in and say, right, this is how we score a fight. You can't have the WBA operating one way, the WBO operating another way, the IBF operating a different way, and therefore what you get is what Laurent suffered at the weekend.
Yeah,
you get it's open then to ambiguity of where people can just score a fight subjectively.
But that wasn't just that. I mean, that performance on the weekend for the referees wasn't just about poor scoring. It was clearly wrong. It wasn't just about subjective. It's clearly wrong, isn't it? So.
Yeah. Listen, the gentleman will be with us in the studio after 12 o'clock, and we will absolutely be taking it up with him. So make sure you come and join us for that. Let's get back on track with the World Cup, because Scotland fans, I'm sure you've seen this story. Your manager, Steve Clarke, decided to cancel a late friendly with the Norwegian team, and he's been branded unprofessional. What do you make of that?
I think if he's guilty of anything, he might be guilty of a lack of etiquette. His job is not to manage the best interests of Norway. His job is to manage the best interests of Scotland. Steve Clarke is not unprofessional. Steve Clarke is, in my view, probably a consummate professional at most of the things he does. And so with this in mind, he must have had good reason. Now, you might not like the etiquette if you're the world-beating Norwegian team, but not...
Could he have not done it earlier? Could he have not made that call earlier? Because surely it's not come off the back of that training session.
So what he's guilty of is a lack of etiquette, and I suppose you could lend that towards a lack of professionalism. And if they want to make their argument, they'll make their argument. I look at it and go, how big a deal is it? It's a training ground session.
Yeah.
It was a 60-minute knockabout.
That's right, yeah.
So what really is it about? It's about people stretching their legs and getting a bit more climate into them. And unfortunately, the Scots have decided...
Do you think the attitude of Norway has come because they haven't had necessarily a successful period in their warm-up games? They've had a couple of draws, haven't they? And whereas Scotland have battered a couple of people 4-0 and 4-1 respectively.
Maybe. I mean, maybe they are they're in unfamiliar territory in terms of being a nation that's now actually, because of the quality of some of the players they've got, they're actually starting to punch. The Norwegian side, I know they beat us once upon a time back in the day when John Motson was spending more time commenting on the fighting in the stands than actually the game between Norway and England back in the day when we lost. But notwithstanding that, they've been a minnow. And now they're not, Norway. They've had some really significant results in recent times, and they've got top players, as we can see. So they want to go into this World Cup and have the best opportunity to give themselves to represent themselves in the best possible format. So having something break from their schedule when their schedule is part of an organised plan will disappoint them. Get on with it. It's adversity, overcome it. It's not going to determine your future in the World Cup. And if you want to have a row with Scotland about it and the media are going to pick up on it, fantastic. But I think that Scotland got to look after themselves. And Norway are well within their rights to turn around and say, we don't like that. How big a deal it is, how important it is. Does it illustrate a lack of professionalism from Scotland? Some might say that Steve Clarke being concerned about the reasons why he's taken those players out of that warm-up session is him being professional about the necessity of looking after what he has to deal with, which is the first game against Haiti and the players being available for it in the right fashion, and he must have made a decision based upon that. Now, if he hasn't done that, it's been the back of a fag packet, and he's done it because his mood's changed, then that's unprofessional and he should be called out on it. But I think it's a storm in a teacup. It's nothing to be concerned about, nothing to be worried about. I don't think it indicates
to this World Cup. Do you pay attention to them? Do you pay attention to the home nations or not?
I'm not in the slightest. I grew up in an era where I used to love the home internationals. I used to love it when, we had the English playing against the Welsh and the Northern Irish and the Scottish. And it was always an interesting tournament. I was disappointed that they got rid of it when I was 10, 11, 12 years of age, watching Bob Latchford or Peter Barnes or Stevie Coppell, who ended up managing Palace when I was there. But I get tired of listening to Jim and the jocks in this studio diminishing England, turning around and saying, if England win the Euros in 2021, it'll be the worst day of my life. They set a scene, so when you give it back to them, they don't like it. So I have to say...
Do you think they're feeling themselves a little bit coming into this World Cup?
I hope... Listen, in all seriousness, we're all joking aside, I hope that they do well. Why do I want Morocco or Haiti to do better than Scotland? I want Scotland to go deeper in the tournament so I can enjoy watching them get properly pumped by somebody. But notwithstanding that, you look at it and say, I think Steve Clarke has done a great job for them.
Yeah.
No, I don't spend any more time looking at Scotland than I would spend looking at Norway. They're not relevant to me. They don't wish English teams well. And so it's a rivalry. And with a rivalry comes banter, comes tribalism. And so with all that in mind, I don't spend any time, besides ridiculing Jim, because he sets the scene, and Alan Brazil the same, and Annie McCoy, they set the scene, which is anti-English, and turn around and talk about how they would dislike England doing well. So we fight fire with fire.
Is a flip on you then regarding the Norway friendly? They've had a good couple of warm-up games there, haven't they? And you've just mentioned the level of the warm-up games, the Curacao and the Bolivia game, where they won 4-1 and 4-0.
Yeah.
Is there an element of fear of calling this off? Because you're playing against a good team there. You're playing against Norway. Do you want to keep the momentum high? Do you want to keep the confidence high going into the World Cup? Listen, we've got a 4-1 win. We've got a 4-0 win. This is fantastic. We're going into Haiti. This is great. But now we're playing against Erling Haaland.
In a 60-minute practice game? I doubt it. I mean, you might be right. I mean, I doubt that's the case. There may well be an issue in terms of wanting to keep the momentum going, but they're hardly playing, in the 2 warm-up games they've played in, they've hardly been against world beaters.
No.
So with due respect, but
the tails are up. They're feeling themselves a bit.
Yeah, but they're feeling themselves already because they're going into the World Cup. It's new horizons for them. It's the first time they've been there since '98. They're full of optimism. They know they're in a group they can get out of. And, I've sat in the studio and Mark McGee trying to make a case, which I'm not going to allow him to, that Haiti are going to be a threat to them because they've got 6'4" centre forwards. That's the case in point that he's making. They beat the Haitians, try and get a result of some description against Morocco and get into the groups, get out of the group stages, and away they go. And then they can have their open-top buses until they get knocked out.
We're going to continue the conversation about the World Cup. We're going to be obviously speaking a little bit about England and Thomas Tuchel and what have you, and we're also going to be getting stuck into various things on the domestic scene as well. You're listening to Adam Catterall in for Jim White with Simon Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selco.com.
think you also have got to give so much credit to Elliot Anderson, because it's almost like, I still feel it's almost like you could play a Rice at 6, you could play a Bellingham at 8, and then a Morgan Rogers at 10, or Cole Palmer. But because Elliot Anderson has done so well for club and country, now he's nailed that spot.
Yeah,
Declan Rice is just £100 million snip, and then so then now you're talking about Jude Bellingham, either Jude Bellingham or Morgan Rogers. Now, what I would say is, if we are to win the World Cup, I think 2 players, maybe 3, because I chuck in Jordan Pickford as well, have to be absolutely superb. So Pickford, Harry Kane, and Jude Bellingham. I think Jude Bellingham is truly world class. But the way that the group has gone, and the way that Thomas Tuchel has enjoyed the way that Morgan Rogers has played, I would have no problem at all if Jude Bellingham was on the bench in the first game against Croatia and Morgan Rogers plays in that one. Now, you can argue, and I understand, and people will be arguing, well, in the last couple of months, perhaps Morgan Rogers' form fell off a little bit. In the game against New Zealand, Jude Bellingham's performance in the second half was perhaps better than Morgan Rogers in the first half. But again, I'm not reading anything into the performance in that particular game. I think Thomas Tuchel knows his 11. I don't know what it is, and I'm fascinated to know whether that's one spot for me. The another one is on the left, and another one is who's going to partner Mark Guehi. I think the rest we can pretty much pick. But in terms of Jude Bellingham, again, he's had a stop-start season at Real Madrid because of injury. But this kid, and he's still a kid, has gone to the biggest club in the world and bossed it. I mean, in his first pre-season...
Get ready to get the ultimate football fan winning feeling with talkSPORT Win.
Because this summer, you and a mate could be jetting off to watch England versus Panama in New Jersey live at the FIFA World Cup 2026 with Adidas, including tickets, flights, accommodation and more.
Go to talksport.com/win to enter now, and you could be soaking up the incredible atmosphere at the FIFA World Cup 2026. For the chance to win every football fan's trip of a lifetime, enter now at talksport.com/win.
You're listening to talkSPORT. Good morning to you. I'm Adam Catterall in for Jim White, alongside the one and only Mr. Simon Jordan. We're going to do a bit of boxing after 12 o'clock, so make sure you stick around for that. But right now we're concentrating all things World Cup and talking all things England. Is Thomas Tuchel winning the nation over, or is he inviting a little bit more pressure on himself with all this Rio Ingmoa stuff at the weekend? What did you make of that? Obviously, including lads that weren't necessarily in the 26 as part of the warm-up procedures on Saturday.
It's an interesting thought process. There's method to his madness, I'm sure. I mean, interesting, I was in a conversation that I'm doing this new show with Piers Morgan and John Terry, and John Terry was talking about Tuchel's responsibility and building out a team for the next World Cup. I'm like, John, what? The next World Cup? Yeah. He's got to win this World Cup. So he was talking about young players and bringing the balance right into the squad. So bringing players that are very young and not doing to them what was done to Theo Walcott, i.e. taking him to a World Cup just because you could take him and not put him anywhere near the field. Bringing him in, give him a little bit of a feel, might make you a hostage of fortune, because you're still going to be in a situation where everybody's an expert. And if this kid played well in a game and subsequently you go to the World Cup and certain players that play in a position that he could have played don't play well, you're going to listen to that narrative.
You've also got to take into consideration the level of opposition he was playing against and the attitude of the other lads who don't want to get injured before the tournament.
But that won't suit the argument at the time, will it? Because ultimately the argument at the time will be, if XYZ player that was playing in a position that this kid played in a meaningless friendly doesn't do very well, the question will be, why didn't Thomas Tuchel take this kid, or why did he put this kid into a situation where he looked so good and created pressure for himself? Thomas Tuchel is under pressure because Thomas Tuchel's raison d'etre is to be better than what was before.
Yes.
So Thomas Tuchel was being brought in, packaged up, and told to everybody he's an elite manager, which, by the way, I think he is. I think he's also an elite pain in the backside at domestic level. But I think as a manager, I think he's an elite manager. He's been brought in to win. So anything short of that is probably going to be challenging for him. How short he comes and the reasons why he becomes short, if he does come short, might be a get-out-of-jail card. If he plays against the French in a World Cup final, it's a barnstormer of a game, and we lose on a penalty shootout, people are going to go, well, actually, that ain't bad. So it's not just about winning, it's about how we might lose if we are to lose. Is he under pressure? He's been given a new contract by the FA. How much pressure is he under?
Is that an error? Well, because, like you just said, he's been brought in to win. Gareth Southgate has built a nice infrastructure, okay, and his downfallings were those big moments in games, making maybe procrastinating a little bit in those.
Not taking elite decisions,
right?
Yeah.
Tuchel's been brought in because he can do that.
Correct.
So
exactly right.
He hasn't proven that he can do that yet.
Well, yeah, exactly. He hasn't been brought in to qualify, has he, Adam? I mean, we look at our qualifying group, and he does it at a canter. But then so did Southgate, and so do we expect our managers to do it. It's not English arrogance; it's the nature of the beast. We should be qualifying through these, and if we don't, we should be held accountable for an alternate circumstance. He's been brought in to create outcomes. Now, the idea that the FA, I have very little time for the FA, but the idea that the FA have a concerted plan and have a clear vision, to me, evades me at times, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt, because the argument being advanced was that Tuchel was such a roaring success, you better nail him down before a domestic team comes and takes him, because you want to build around him. I thought we were getting Tommy Tuchel for 18 months.
Yeah.
A smash and grab, one and done. Go try and win this World Cup and away we go. And then maybe view it afterwards. If you've got an international manager managing one of the big 6 nations in the world, they're tournament managers. They should be judged by tournament to tournament to tournament. And of course, there should be an infrastructure, a continuity within the England framework, a bit like club football, where you know where the vision of English football's going, so you can deal with the future, because you're trying to future-proof everything. The argument will always be, if you win here and now, but what about the future? Look what happened in 1966. We didn't play with any wingers, and the England through the 70s didn't have a particular team of any substance. There's always this argument about how we should play going forward. I think you win in the here and now. Why about the future when the future comes? If you win, you give yourself an opportunity to build the future. But notwithstanding that, they're looking at Tuchel, in my understanding, and going, well, we want him. We back ourselves. We believe he's going to be successful for us, so we'll give him a contract. I find that strange, but most of what happens in football is strange, because we should be driving to the point where Tuchel merits a contract based upon what he does in what he was employed to do, which was be successful in the World Cup, not in the qualifying stages.
With that in mind, then, are you confident that he's prepared to make those big decisions? For example, there's a debate at the moment about number 10, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Whether it's Jude Bellingham, whether it's Morgan Rogers, or whoever.
Absolutely. Whether they're the right decisions or not, I'm pretty clear that he will make big, strong, change-orientated decisions when they come. Now, I think
that's what we want, though, don't we? We want that guy.
That is the only criticism that I've ever laid at Gareth Southgate's door. I've never had an issue with Gareth. I think he was fortunate to be elevated to the England manager's job. But at that time, what he took over from Sam Allardyce, and ironically, he was offered the job before Sam took it, and then came back round full circle after the situation with Sam. He did a decent job of bringing together all the disparate factions of football, the players that couldn't play alongside one another, the media communication, and the goodwill factor. But we missed opportunities, and those opportunities were real live ones. They weren't gimmies, but they were real live opportunities. And I'm hoping that if Tommy Tuchel gets the same circumstances, the draws that we had in previous World Cups, against the same opposition in times, that he will make the decisions that Gareth didn't make. The Croatians in the first World Cup of 2018, and changing in the second half to adapt to what the Croatians did in the second half rather than what it did in the first. Changing the direction of travel when the Italians were swarming all over us at the Euros 2021, and doing something before it happened, and stepping on the French's throat when we had them in a cleft position and could have overloaded them. Those are the decisions that I think Thomas Tuchel can do in his sleep. And he's not interested in the popularity contest. He's not interested in playing to the gallery. He will run this team the way he sees fit, and that to me is leadership.
It's unlikely that he's going to get that run though of games, though, isn't it? Because if we look at how this might play out, we might get Mexico
in the quarterfinals in Mexico.
Yeah. If they're successful there, then it's Brazil. Then it could be Argentina, and then we know that it's one of those two big boys. But
up until that point, so up until the round of 8. Right, he will have had to have played 3, 4, 5 games by that time. By the time we get to the quarters, so he will have opportunities to build up momentum and to make certain decisions and prepare himself for the games. I mean, with due respect to the Mexicans, I know it's a terrible environment to go and play in because of the heat and the partisan nature of the crowd. But on the field, our team will be better than the Mexicans.
Yeah.
It's about how they adapt to it. And you've got big-time players. These are big-time players. We've got a guy playing up top that's scored 61 goals this season. We've got a guy that's sitting in the centre of midfield that's, should be the captain of Arsenal, probably will be in the short term, is a Premier League winner. You've got quality all over the field. It's up to them. It's up to it's up to Thomas Tuchel to set them up right to be able to achieve the outcomes that they're perfectly capable of. Now, whether they can overcome France, I think to England to win this World Cup, England need to be absolutely 100% on the money, and Spain and France need to be 10% off. And if you get that game, the decisions that Thomas Tuchel will make in that game will give us an opportunity to win. It's a big ask, but why shouldn't it be a big ask to try and win a World Cup?
You just mentioned a couple of players there. Is Jude Bellingham one of your clutch players?
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course he is. I mean, Morgan Rogers is a good player, but Jude Bellingham is a world-class player. And despite the fact that maybe Jude's going through a phase in his career where people are not taking to him, and maybe there's some issues about some of his disposition, I hear certain things in Madrid from relatively reliable sources that there's no relationship between Bellingham and Mbappe. The two egos can't be in the same room. And that's maybe why Mourinho's been brought back in to try and get some order in place. But let's be under no illusion. Jude Bellingham is a game changer and a winner and a world-class footballer. And if after 75 minutes you change him for Morgan Rogers, what a hardship that is. But Jude Bellingham, by any measurement, any rational measurements, should be in the starting lineup because he is a world-class footballer. And and we've got probably 3 or 4 of them in the team, and he's one of them.
You've said that Tuchel's been brought in to win.
Yeah.
What happens if he doesn't? What's the attitude towards him if he doesn't?
Depends how he loses. And that's not me giving him a get-out-of-jail card. I just gave you an example. If you were to play the French in the final of the World Cup, some hypothetical scenario, and we to play a game where we're bold and we play on the front foot and we're not waiting for the opposition to do something to us, we're at the opposition taking advantage and opportunities, and we go to a penalty shootout because both teams have played a wonderful game and drawn 2-0 and we lose because someone misses a penalty. What do? Say to Thomas Tuchel, you failed. I know in the binary world that I would have it sometimes. You either win or you lose. Everyone can come second. It's not difficult. Just turn up. But there is a way that England... I'm looking at this tournament going, for once, beat someone that we, on paper, can't or wouldn't be expected to, and then we'll build from that. So in every tournament, I know we beat the Germans, but this was not the Germans of previous times, so we can't use that as an example. So I'm looking at it going, if we draw one of these sides that on paper that we don't beat and the Thomas Tuchel factor comes in, then we'll build from there and we'll cross each bridge when it comes. So I think it's about judging the failure of not winning the World Cup, if we consider not winning the World Cup a failure, because we're not the number one favourites. In our own little minds in England, we want us to win because we're saying, hang on, come on, somewhere along the line. If everyone else can get to a final, everyone else can get to a semi-final, everyone can be a losing finalist, somewhere along the line they win. So why can't it happen for us? There are unique factors around this tournament that play not into our opportunities, not into our narrative. Our ultimate opportunity was 2021 at home in the Euros.
Of course.
But we've got an elite manager. And if anyone's going to make the difference, I think Tuchel can make the difference.
We're going to switch from the World Cup towards everything that's going on in the world of cricket, because I'm sure you've seen this story surrounding the England captain, Ben Stokes. Could he be axed as England captain after that nightclub incident? We'll get stuck into it after the news. You're listening to Adam Catterall in for Jim White with Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
Remember what happened at the Euros?
Yes.
And then we saw the scenes last night. And it was quite harrowing. It's awful to ever see anything like that. But when it's someone that it's happened to them before and they've made that comeback, thankfully they had the pacemaker fitted.
Yes.
But for me, when I heard the news and then I was watching it on the telly and listening to talkSPORT, the fact that eventually Christian got up and walked off was just fantastic.
Oh, of course.
Right? And I think that was the huge difference. And sorry, Gabby, I just think. My views. Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing he won't be allowed to play in the World Cup, right? That would be obscene, especially with the weather conditions. But I just think sometimes in life you get a little warning, and it's like, I don't know what you believe in, what faith, if you believe in faith or not. But I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, okay, you've had that little bit of fun in the sun, right? And this is a warning. Your family your kids and your health are more important than anything else on the planet. And maybe now it's time for Christian just to stop, is my view.
I agree that there's more to life than football.
Yeah.
I mean, he obviously loves football, fantastic player, but he's had a great career as well. You know, he's in his 30s now. He shouldn't really be putting his body through this anymore. But it'd be interesting to find out, Andy, from like an expert, that would he be okay if he wasn't playing football? Could it still happen? Do you know, like, is it because obviously his heart rate's getting so high playing football? Is that what's bringing it on? It'd be interesting to
talkSPORT Sports Update, powered by the Nissan Van Range. Commercial vehicles that go the distance for your business. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van Centre.
With your headlines at 11:01, I'm Nick Ellaby. Good morning. talkSPORT Steve Harmison says everyone needs to calm down as Ben Stokes is investigated over an incident in a nightclub.
Ben's a great kid. He's an honest lad, and he's somebody who will know whether he's overstepped the boundaries or not. And he will. I'm fully behind him, and he'll do whatever needs to be the right thing to be done in this situation once the facts come out.
It's understood Stokes was involved in an altercation with a Saracens Academy rugby player in the early hours of Monday morning. The independent football regulator's in touch with West Ham following historical allegations about their co-owner. David Sullivan categorically denies he pressured young models into sex as owner of the Daily and Sunday Sport. Former Palace chairman Simon Jordan doesn't see how Sullivan can be forced to sell his stake in West Ham.
But what we're talking about is inappropriate, unseemly behaviour. We're not talking at this moment in time about illegal behaviour. And because he hasn't been charged with anything. So where do they go? Has he got controlling influence over the football club? He's resigned from his position of vice chairman for his own reasons.
2 days out from the World Cup, Iran's FA says the country's ticket allegation has been revoked. It means supporters who've already made plans will be unable to attend matches. England's final warm-up game against Costa Rica is live on talkSPORT tomorrow night. Meanwhile, Michel Platini's filed a criminal complaint against Gianni Infantino. Former UEFA President Platini claims Infantino worked to exclude him from the race to become president of FIFA. We understand Leeds keeper Carl Darlow is a target for Man United this summer. The last player to move from Leeds to Old Trafford was Alan Smith in 2004. We're told Crystal Palace is set to appoint former Lens head coach Pierre Sage, and former Palace manager Oliver Glasner is in advanced talks to take over at AC Milan. More at talksport.com.
talkSPORT News.
Sir Keir Starmer has condemned the sickening knife attack in Belfast, and Cole Palmer is in Madonna's latest music video. Amelia's got more at past.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. The season's changing, so get your car's shim pads and studs checked for spring with a free vehicle safety check. Book in centre or at quickfit.com today.
Sunny spells and showers for most. Some areas staying dry. Showers most frequent in the north and west. It's wet across central and eastern Scotland as well. Feeling cool today.
Get ready to get the ultimate football fan winning feeling with talkSPORT Win.
Because this summer, you and a mate could be jetting off to watch England versus Panama in New Jersey live at the FIFA World Cup 2026 with Adidas, including tickets, flights, accommodation and more.
Go to talksport.com/win to enter now, and you could be soaking up the incredible atmosphere at the FIFA World Cup 2026. For the chance to win every football fan's trip of a lifetime, enter now at talksport.com/win.
Morning, you're listening to talkSPORT. I'm Adam Catterall in for Jim White alongside Simon Jordan. Lots still to come on the show. After 12 o'clock this morning, we're going to get stuck into a lot of boxing conversation as Ben Shalom joins us in the studio, as will Lerone Richards, off the back of a devastating split decision loss for him last week in controversial fashion as well. We're also going to be speaking quite a lot about the Real Madrid presidential election, where Florentino Perez has come in, how that affects going forward. Mr. Mourinho looking like he's going to be the new manager of Los Blancos, but we'll get stuck into a little bit of cricket chat now, as I'm sure it hasn't passed you by that Ben Stokes' position as England Test captain is hanging by a thread after an altercation at a nightclub with Saracens rugby player in the early hours of Monday morning. It seems, Simon, every single time that we speak about England in any way, shape or form, especially over the last year or so, there's something happening off the pitch rather than things happening on the pitch. Obviously, this time they've beaten New Zealand. They've gone out for a celebration, I'm assuming. And then this story isn't a good look on the England captain and the England team.
No, but I'm not a great one for optics. I recognise the fact that in the past we've seen circumstances that have been unacceptable. Ben Stokes himself has been involved in the past and narrowly got away with a situation years ago with an altercation outside of a nightclub. He's the England cricket captain. It comes with a balance and a responsibility to act in a certain way. Curfews, I don't know. I'm of the mindset either stop people from doing something or let them have the judgment of grown adults. He's a man. He's the captain of England. If you're going to stop him from going out, then stop him from going out. Don't tell him he's got to be back in by 12. This isn't, this is, they aren't his parents. But there's also a perspective where sportsmen have got to realise, perhaps, that there's certain times and places they can't go out. Now, none of us are really that privy to the circumstance. And if his captaincy is hanging by the thread, of course, it makes a nice soundbite to suggest that it is. Is he a good captain? Sure. Did he do well in Australia with the way that he communicated with the media and allowed certain ex-players to take up the umbrage about the fact they didn't want to listen to people that were has-beens and whatever else? Do I think that was wise? No. Do I think he's a brilliant player? Absolutely. Should brilliant players be excluded from having to operate a certain way? Certainly as leaders, probably not. But having all the facts and avail yourself of all the facts rather than rushing to judgment is my preferred position. Do I think that he'll lose his England captaincy? Doubtful.
Let's get some more information on it, because Lawrence Booth, who is the editor and cricket writer for the Mail, is very kindly given up a bit of time to come and join us on the show. Morning, Lawrence. How are you, mate?
Good morning. Fine, thanks. Yeah, still reeling slightly, but there we go. Another day in English cricket.
Another day in English cricket, indeed. Tell us a little bit more about it, your immediate reaction to this story off the back of England beating New Zealand earlier on this week.
Yeah, well, that result was the good news story English cricket needed, obviously, after what happened in Australia. So good start, but then within hours of that, news emerges that Stokes and Gus Atkinson, the fast bowler, who celebrated with a match-winning five, broke the team curfew, which had been imposed after the Ashes, Simon was alluding to there. So the first time of asking, this is Stokes' first game since the Ashes. He's fallen at the first hurdle, if you like, and that has absolutely dismayed the ECB, as you can imagine. They needed this story to be about the sort of rebirth of English cricket, the attempts of this team to reconnect with the public who'd grown sceptical about their professionalism and seriousness during the tour of Australia. And instead, we've got another story about staying out late and a fracas and alcohol.
Does the England team have a behavioural problem, Matt?
I think it's hard for them to deny it now. They did deny it pretty hard over the winter, but of course they covered up the fact that Harry Brook had been punched by a bouncer in New Zealand before the Ashes. There was the famous video of Ben Duckett going AWOL in Noosa, the 4-day trip between the second and third test when lots of drink was consumed. And here we are now, 166 overs into the international summer, and they already seem to be confirming people's worst fears. Look, I don't want to be moralistic about sportsmen drinking beer, letting their hair down. They all need to do that. But there is a time and a place for these things, and this was not the time and the place. This was the time to have a drink in the hotel, observe the curfew, which had been... Stokes was part of the management team that imposed that curfew, and he is the one who's now turned around and broken it. So it's very hard now, I think, for him to hang on to the authority that he's had over this team, and England face a very difficult decision.
Why? What is Ben's? I mean, obviously, I think the bigger issue is things like Jofra Archer not turning up to play for England and preferring to play in the IPL. But in this instance, you've got the team captain, and you've got his relationship with the ECB. Why would Stokes operate in this way? Does he have a good relationship with the ECB? Does he respect his authority? Does he understand the guidelines? Does he understand his responsibility? What do you get what is your basic understanding of Ben Stokes' attitude towards the whole dynamic?
Look, he's been through a very difficult few months. There's no doubt about that. He took the Ashes defeat personally. He then got a terrible blow to the cheek when he was in the net. So a very difficult injury to his cheekbone. He has been under serious pressure. There have been discussions about his relationship with Brendan McCullum. He's not anti the ECB, but I think he's let his relief, if you like, go too far after what was a sort of cathartic win over New Zealand. They simply had to win after what happened in Australia, and he has taken the celebrations too far, probably. And I think that is the big problem he's got now. How can he stand over his teammates and say, we've got to respect the curfew, we've got to get back on side with the public, we've got to do a bit of a PR job. You know, I hear what you say about optics, but we have got to convince people that we are a serious cricket team. And he himself has led the charge on not doing that.
Well, let me pose a question. And isn't that the same for McCullum? In terms of England got bashed into the next life in Australia, yet he still retained control of the team. Isn't there a credibility issue about England having to change the way they play? People can absolutely adapt to a circumstance. He's transgressed. I understand that to some extent it's not ideal, but this idea that it's feast or famine, that he'll no longer have the respect of the players, is probably for the birds, in the same way that Brendan McCullum can not have the authority over the team because his team got destroyed in Australia.
Well, I agree. I think McCullum was lucky to keep his job after Australia. So much went wrong there. He himself admitted 2 tests in that they hadn't prepared the players properly for that first test, and that was really where the series went, on that collapse on the second day in Perth. So, look, McCullum is lucky. There are questions for the whole ECB hierarchy to answer. Rob Key, the manager director, has backed McCullum all the way. Even the chairman and the chief exec, Richard Thompson and Richard Gould, have got questions to answer. They have.
My point is not that. My point is that you're suggesting that in order for Ben Stokes to operate in the same position, he's lost his opportunity to have authority over the team because he's illustrated that he can't behave in the way that he'd asked the team to do. And I'm using the example of saying McCullum has lost some of his influence, yet he's still in control. And we're making a case in this conversation that the next step is it's going to be difficult to keep him in position. And I'm saying, well, hang on, we kept McCullum in position, so why wouldn't we keep Ben Stokes in position? And are we better off by having Stokes as captain or making an example of him?
Well, look, I mean, McCullum they had their post-Ashes review. Now, whether you think that was a serious operation or not is another matter.
Yeah.
But they decided to sort of start again, start afresh. Here are the rules. Here's a new set of rubrics that we all agree to. There's a 12 o'clock curfew. OK, that is humiliating for grown men. I agree with what you said. Yeah. That is what they've decided to do. And if the captain can't respect that 4 days into a long international summer, the start of the summer where they're trying to reconnect with the public, show everything's serious, there's only so much McCullum in that particular instance can do. He can't stand over Stokes and block his exit out of the hotel. That is on Stokes. Now, look, there are other issues to be asked about McCullum's role in all this and how lucky is this to stay in the job. But on this particular incident, Stokes has to take the blame.
I don't understand why they've got to go into a nightclub. Like you said it right at the start of this, Lawrence, when we were talking. Listen, they've had a good victory. It's great. They've turned the attitude around from what we experienced down under. Just have a few beers with your mates in the hotel. You've got another couple of games coming up. Why did they have to go out?
Well, that is the question that Stokes will have to answer and explain to the ECB. That it seems absolute madness. Nothing good happens after midnight, as Stokes has said previously. Stay in with your mates. Have take the celebrations in the dressing room to the team hotel if you want, but don't go on the front pages. And Brendan McCullum took over the job. That was one of the 2 sort of things he said to them. Don't behave badly, use a different word, and stay off the front pages. Stokes is on the front pages today, and we're only a couple of days into the new summer.
How do you think this plays out?
I'd be surprised if Stokes remains as England captain. Whether he's or is pushed aside by the ECB, I think one of those 2 things will happen. I think they feel that. But
then the replacement then would be Harry Brooks, then, wouldn't it? Who also got into trouble whilst they were out in Australia.
Absolutely. I mean, you couldn't make it up. You know, Harry Brooks is the guy who was punched by a nightclub bouncer because he'd been out too late. Now, look, England will say that Brooke has learnt from that. He's forged quite a good relationship with McCullum as white ball captain. After Australia, England went to Sri Lanka under Brooke and then the T20 World Cup in the subcontinent. Brooke did pretty well, and England feel he's grown up a bit. But they didn't want to be giving him the captaincy so early. They wanted Stokes to end his England captaincy holding up the Ashes urn at the Oval next summer when Australia return. That was the plan. They do not want to be giving it to Brooke, but their hand may be forced now.
Lawrence, top man, thank you very much for going through all that with us this morning. It's a story that obviously will develop, and when there is more information on the situation regarding Ben Stokes and that England captaincy, we'll get it here for you on talkSPORT. You listen to Adam Catterall in for Jim White and with Simon Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go.
actually has been made of Jude Bellingham and his role in this World Cup. Many thought Thomas Tuchel would give him the captain's armband in the second half, and that meant he's back in favour. However, he's actually facing a fight to make the starting 11. After I mean, I'd be stunned, but Thomas Tuchel said this after the game about Bellingham. He's one of the starters. He knows he's one of the starters, but we have 14 or 15 potential starters. Yeah. These roles can always change, but at the moment, I think there are like 14 or 15 prepper starters, and Jude is one of them. Would he say that about Harry Kane?
Yeah, but I think he's right, though. Everyone's looking for a story here. Bellingham's not going to start. So what? Bellingham has got experience. Already played in 3 tournaments. This is his 4th tournament. 3 goals, 2 assists in major tournaments. He's got the experience. But if he doesn't start, so what? It's not a big deal. Morgan Rogers has been in outstanding form for Aston Villa. And I'm sure by the end of the tournament, whenever England go out, if they win it, Jude Bellingham would have played a big role. But if he does start, he knows he's got to be at it. Because you've got someone like Rodgers and Eze who are there to try and take your spot.
You say it's not a big deal, and I agree it's not a big deal.
Not for me.
But you want your best player starting, and I would say Jude Bellingham's better than Morgan Rogers.
Of course, yeah.
What happened there?
Different players for me. I like Jude Bellingham, but I love the way Morgan Rogers. He's running
better. If you're going to pick one in out of 10, who are you picking?
I can't call it.
Why?
I think they both offer something different. In certain games, you'd have Bellingham. In certain games, you'd have Rodgers. But Bellingham could start against Croatia, and what if he's quiet?
Yeah.
Rodgers comes on, plays out of his skin, and has a good performance. Starts the next game.
It's a nice problem to have, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But what I like about Thomas Tuchel is the fact that, and you've got to keep footballers on their feet. You can't. In theory, no one's guaranteed. Yeah. If you asked him about Pickford, he'd probably say the same. Although we all know
who is guaranteed.
What?
Pickford, Rice, and Kane. Name anyone.
Get ready to get the ultimate football fan winning feeling with talkSPORT Win.
Because this summer, you and a mate could be jetting off to watch England versus Panama in New Jersey live at the FIFA World Cup 2026 with Adidas, including tickets, flights, accommodation and more.
Go to talksport.com/win to enter now, and you could be soaking up the incredible atmosphere at the FIFA World Cup 2026. For the chance to win every football fan's trip of a lifetime, enter now at talksport.com/win.
Morning, you're listening to talkSPORT. I'm Adam Catterall, in for Jim White, alongside Simon Jordan. We are going to be talking boxing in around about 40 minutes' time from now. Ben Shalom's going to be on the show with us ahead of the announcement of a big new broadcast deal. More on that following a bit of conversation about Chris Smith, no doubt, at the weekend. Right now, though, let's get stuck into the Enzo Maresca situation at Manchester City. There is a compensation conversation in and around the Maresca appointment. Maresca and Chelsea remain locked in negotiations about him replacing Pep Guardiola, as talks have been held up due to issues surrounding a compensation package. Now, he decided to walk away from the situation at Chelsea.
He did, yeah.
So therefore, he's still under contract, if I'm not mistaken, up until, is it 2029, something like that?
Yeah.
And therefore, they will want compensating should Manchester City take him on as their manager.
And he will want Manchester City to pay it on his behalf. And that will be the discussion that's going on. So, irrespective of the rights and wrongs of whether Maresca was badly treated at Chelsea or whether his outburst in the press conference was ludicrous because he didn't back it up with any substance, and whether he resigned and then expected compensation when you don't get compensation for resigning, so grow up and work out the real world, it's all by the by. But there is, I think, a real live situation where Chelsea are in control of the circumstances surrounding him, and someone's got to pay them. And someone's got to pay them significant amount of money for him to join Man City, and that means not Maresca, because you're not going to get a football person.
Should they do it? Should City do that?
Well, if the contractual position that Chelsea have with this manager enables that to be the case, then tough luck. You know, some people suggest that maybe Man City were talking to this manager prior to him being out of contract. And so what does that suggest? Is that good behaviour? Who knows? Look, the bottom line is that if Chelsea have got a contractual position, they should enforce it. I enforced a contractual position years ago when Steve Bruce decided he wanted to resign. He got injuncted, and you know, Sullivan again had to pay something he didn't want to pay when he went to Birmingham. If you've got a contractual position and you do your job properly, I think there's a lot of questions about how Chelsea handled Maresca, but there's also a lot of questions about how Maresca handled himself. And at the end of the day, he was given an opportunity of being taken out of a championship club at Leicester, put into a big club at Chelsea, did okay, won a European Conference League and a World Club Championship, probably then developed a whole bunch of hubris, which turned him into something bigger than he thought he was. And now he's got an opportunity to go to Man City. And if the contract provides Chelsea to demand of somebody, and ostensibly I would suspect Maresca, to compensate them for his departure from his contract, and he of course won't want to do that, he'll get someone else to pay it for him. It'll be an argument between Man City and Chelsea on behalf of Maresca about how much money this really works out to be.
Given what you've just said about his trajectory in football management, do you think he's pretty fortunate to be getting an opportunity at Man City?
Yes, I think so. But, you know, Man City aren't fools. They've had him previously. They've made most decisions they've made, or certainly in the last 10 years, they've made very, very few wrong decisions because they just put Pep Guardiola in the building and let him do what he wants. And to replace Pep Guardiola is a significant challenge in of itself, whoever it is.
Yeah.
And so he's got that challenge. But they are very considered in what they do. They have enormous resources. They have a wide ability to be able to recruit who they want. Some people would say following Guardiola is perhaps something a lot of managers wouldn't want to do. A lot of managers would want to do it because they know what they're walking into Man City, which is a ownership model that is economically well seeded now, is a machine that produces significant outcomes, albeit some would say the League Cup and FA Cup is not where they're aiming for, but notwithstanding it, it's still trophies. So it's a trophy-winning proposition. And so they considered it in the same way that the uneducated outlook on Keith Andrews at Brentford was, what are Brentford doing here? Well, did you forget that Matthew Benham might just know what he's doing in the same way that Tony Bloom might just know what he's doing, and they've had an opportunity to consider it? Man City have got an embarrassment of riches, and they've chosen Maresca. Now, Maresca's credentials for getting the Man City job are not the same as Guardiola's.
No.
Guardiola came from being an elite manager at Barcelona, an elite manager at Bayern Munich, albeit he didn't quite emulate what Hansi Flick had done at Bayern Munich, but notwithstanding it, still came to Man City as an elite manager. This guy comes with a relationship with Man City, with the perception...
Is that the key thing, that he's got a relationship with some of these players?
Must be. Can't be based upon what he's done at Chelsea and Leicester. It must be based upon an element of Guardiola seeding him, Sorcerer and The Apprentice.
That's dangerous, though, isn't it? Because is that not what Sir Alex Ferguson did with David Moyes to an extent?
Well, yeah, but Alex didn't work with David, and Guardiola did work with Maresca, and there's always an element of risk. I don't think publicly Guardiola's put his name to it in the same way that Alex Ferguson put his name to it. But then Manchester United were a different club at that time. Alex Ferguson, from 1986 to 2013, was the reason why Manchester United were successful and got a 4-year window to be successful, beat Palace in the 1990 FA Cup final, and moved on from there, right? And got 4 years to do it. In this day and age, you might not have got those 4 years. So I look at it and say, is Maresca lucky? Yeah, is Mourinho lucky going back to Real Madrid? Where's his career going? Roma, Fenerbahce, Benfica, Real Madrid? Some could say, is that lucky? Yes, he's lucky that he's in that position. And the question will be, is he good enough to, A, capitalise on the opportunity that's been left him, which is a decent squad, and do a slot-like thing?
Do you think he is?
I think he will have learnt lessons from Chelsea. I think his behaviour at Chelsea was poor. And that's not because I'm an owner supporting an ownership model. I think he behaved like a child in a press conference. I think the backstory behind it is a little bit more convoluted than Chelsea fans want to hear, because right now Bluecoat are clown college as far as they're concerned, and anybody that defends Bluecoat or says something alternative about Bluecoat being a clown college is a shill. Right? So when I start talking about the reasons why Maresca might have found himself in an invidious position and how he was complicit in it, I'm shilling for Egbali or Todd Boehly. I'm not. I'm just giving you an alternate point of view. I think Maresca acted like a child. I think you've got to take medical advice about players. I think you've got to have a modern-day management structure. You knew what you were coming into. When you got the job at Chelsea, you knew what the ownership model was like. So don't cry about it 15 months later because you won something. Find a way to adapt. Find a way to get autonomy. Find a way to get control. And find a way to get what you require out of the job. I'm sure Alonso's going to do that at Chelsea. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken this job. So with all that in mind, I think Maresca, but I think the point you're asking me is will Maresca become a top manager at Man City? I think the lessons that he's learned at Chelsea, and some of them will be quite harsh ones about the reality of his own shortcomings, about how to handle situations, how to handle players, how to handle his own misgivings, how to handle his own insecurities, because some of those I've become aware of. I think it will stand him in good stead to go into Manchester City, because he's got something there that isn't particularly broken.
No.
And that's a nice place to be.
But you're walking into a big shadow there, aren't you, after Pep Guardiola?
Sure, absolutely. But there will also be players in that dressing room that maybe think it's time for a change with Guardiola. I'm interested to see how Foden's relationship developed over the last 12 months with Guardiola. I'm of the understanding not particularly well. And so there are players in that dressing room that will see a change as an opportunity. But the machine isn't broken. And if Maresca is sensible, managers with reputations and managers with perceptions, you walk in the door, you can have a manager that no one's got a perception of that can entrance the players, or you can have a manager that walks in the door that everyone thinks is a wonderful manager. He opens his mouth and he loses them in 15 seconds. So it's all about what Maresca does and how he conducts himself and what the players hear, what they like, what they feel is relatable. I think there's very little doubt the man can coach. The management side of things, because part of managing a big football club is managing up. It isn't just about winning on a football field. That's the core product. We know that. Everyone knows that. But you've got to manage the media as well. You've got to manage the players and their outlooks and these multimillionaires that need to have their backsides wiped, and you have to prostitute yourself a little bit to achieve that. And you've also got to work within the framework.
Has he not fallen short of that, though?
Well, but he's fallen short in Chelsea because there's a lot of reasons perhaps why. And I think the ownership of Chelsea have got to take some responsibility of that. Of course they have. You can't do some of the things that they've done. I think they've got more sporting directors in Chelsea than they've got fans. And I think that's flawed. I think they've got to think about some of their buying policies. I think they've got to think about how they manage managers and think about the decisions they're making. You can't just load a team full of young players and expect it to work. You've got to have some balance in there. And they've got to learn the lessons. And 4 years in, they should have learnt them now. And I think alighting upon Alonso is going to be a fascinating revelation, because Alonso comes with a big reputation. Didn't do it at Real Madrid for whatever reason. The dressing room beat him. But did do it in Germany. And, there was an idea that he was going to go to Liverpool. And people will see that Alonso, most people that dislike Chelsea, including their own fans right now, just like the ownership of Chelsea, will be relatively staggered because apparently this was a job that no one would want. But Alonso's got it. And this was someone that everyone wanted. This was someone apparently Liverpool were wanting. So how does those two things chime? So it's going to be a fascinating time at Chelsea, but also for Maresca, because Guardiola's gone from the Premier League and someone following in behind him is an interesting phenomenon, but it isn't broken. And we've just seen that dynamic with Liverpool, where Slot inherited the first season, won the league, and then the club changed for a lot of reasons. The tragedy of Jota, the loss of players, Diaz going to Bayern Munich was a big miss. And when he tried to rebuild a side, he couldn't do it. And it might be that Maresca just gets a carry. And you don't really see what he's all about because he doesn't do anything particularly revolutionary, because he hasn't got to, because the playing squad's there. And the players are... most of them are self-motivated. Both of them are very good players. Most of these footballers don't need to be coached. They just need to be pointed in the right direction and man-managed. And it'll be interesting to see if Maresca has matured enough, which I think he will do, because all of us mature. When I walked into Palace at 31 years of age, I said in my first press conference something I wouldn't say 10 years later. So he'll have done 2 or 3 years in management. He'll have seen the circumstances in which he was successful or unsuccessful in. He'll have learnt lessons, and he can apply them at Man City. But also, Man City wouldn't be taking this risk if they didn't know in part or get a good understanding of what they're likely to be getting.
For a person that doesn't know too much about football contracts and how this all works, what type of money are we talking about from a compensation deal here?
Oh, as much as Chelsea can wring out of it. I mean, I would imagine they want double-digit millions. You've got a manager that might well be on £4 or £5 million a year. You've got the complications of changing that management in terms of recruiting Alonso and players that have been bought and losses that could be incurred as a result of players that are no longer required by this new manager. So they're going to be trying to get as much
serious compensation package.
Yeah, and they're not trying to upset Man City. They're trying to concentrate the mind of the manager, and the contract will determine what the likely outcome is going to be, because the manager will have certain obligations underneath this contract. So if he's on £4 or £5 million a year and he's broke the contract 2 or 3 years early, expect to see someone paying 15 million quid.
There you go. More on this as that story develops. You're listening to talkSPORT. I'm Adam Catterall in for Jim White with Simon Jordan on talkSPORT. Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go.
He was brought in to win the World Cup. It is all or nothing. You either win the World Cup or you don't. Now, actually, it might be black or white for a lot of people. I think there's a little bit of greyness in there. If he gets through to the semi-final and loses unluckily against Argentina or Portugal for some reason, or gets to the final as well, I think that's okay in these conditions. But there will be a lot of people who will say, well, you didn't do this, you didn't take Cole Palmer, Morgan Gibbs-White, Harry Maguire, Lewis Hall. You know, you made these decisions with the Arsenal boys. Do you know what? It's all about winning football matches now. And in that sense, even though I haven't been in total agreement with him, I'm behind him.
Thomas Tuchel all the way for Scott Minto.
Not quite.
What's the minimum then? I know you said he was brought in to win the World Cup.
The minimum.
What's the minimum that he has to achieve for you?
Do you know what? So for the 2022 World Cup, I thought, you know what, we've got a real good chance here. And Hugo Lloris said if Harry Kane had stuck that penalty away, England would have beaten us, and who knows what would have happened after that. The 2024 Euros, I thought going into it, I thought we've got a great chance here, and we kind of laboured our way through to the final. Genuinely, with this competition, I've got no idea. Because we could easily get to the final, because I think we are one of the best teams, and we could evolve as the tournament goes on. But then there's half a dozen who could as well. Or we could play Mexico in Mexico City with the heat, humidity, altitude. Graham Souness once told me, he was captain of Scotland in '86. He said, your body does three things in the altitude. One, you can handle it. Two, you struggle. Three, you're absolutely gone.
Ben Stokes' future as England captain is in the balance after an altercation with a young rugby player in a nightclub following the test win over New Zealand. talkSPORT's Steve Harmison says we must wait for the full facts.
It could just be two lads, wrong place, wrong time, broke a curfew, out a little bit longer. And if that's the case, I mean, we've all done it.
England's cricketers are still under a midnight curfew following allegations of a team drinking culture. It's understood a Saracens academy player threw a punch at bowler Gus Atkinson, who was with Stokes in a nightclub early on Monday morning. Now, West Ham's billionaire co-owner David Sullivan categorically denies allegations of sexually exploitative behaviour. They date back to the 1980s when he was the owner of Daily and Sunday Sport newspapers. Former glamour model Sasha Wall says she auditioned for David Sullivan in his bedroom in Essex.
Then he just turns around to me and goes, do you know who, and says a model's name? And I say, yeah. He went, well, she's one of my special friends. Would you like to be one of my special friends?
Sullivan has stepped down as West Ham chairman to fight what he calls the false allegations. We're hearing Crystal Palace are set to appoint Pierre Sarge as their new manager. With Lens, Sarge won the club's first ever French Cup and finished second in Ligue 1. There is more at talksport.com.
Good morning. You're listening to talkSPORT. I'm Adam Catterall alongside Simon Jordan on this world famous White and Jordan radio programme. It is time now with BetMGM to get stuck into Showtime. Gambleaware.org. You've got to be over 18.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. We're ready for the action. Are you? Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18 plus. Gambleaware.org.
Sean Martin's given up a bit of time to come and join us. Sean, how are you, mate? You good?
All good, lads. How are you?
Very well indeed, mate. Very well indeed. I believe that we're going to be talking about the World Cup preview of the Netherlands team heading into this World Cup. What have you got for us?
Yeah, we are indeed. Just 2 days out from the big kick-off now. And Simon, as you know, we've been kind of looking at the big teams one by one over the past week or so. I have got the Netherlands today. They're 18-1 shots to win it all. And actually, one of the guys in the office was telling me earlier, some economist has predicted them to win the whole thing after getting the last 3 World Cup winners correct. But I must say, quite a difficult group on paper. I think they are 7 to 10 favourites to win it, and we know the group stages. I mean, three will go through usually in most of the groups, but they play Japan first, who, if you remember, beat both Germany and Spain in the group stage in 2022. Then it's Sweden with Alexander Isak and Victor Gyökeres, and then Tunisia to end the group. They do have loads of Premier League players in the squad. Yuri and Timber obviously now unavailable because of injury, but that defence still looks very, very formidable. You're talking Denzel Dumfries linked with Real Madrid, Van Hecke from Brighton, Van Dijk, Van de Ven. The midfield arguably being slept on a bit, De Jong, Gravenberch and Reinders. It's probably up front where you do wonder if they've maybe got the minerals for the full shebang. It's hardly Cruyff, Van Basten, Kluivert and Van Persie levels, is it? You've got Memphis Depay, who's now away in Brazil playing, even though I think he's only 32 still. Cody Gakpo and probably Donyell Malen. I actually read Ruud Gullit basically saying Memphis is the top Dutch scorer of all time statistically, but that he basically considers him nowhere near the top kind of bracket of Dutch players, and I think that probably sums it up. Gakpo has, to his credit, been decent at tournaments, 3 goals apiece at the 2022 World Cup and the Euros a couple of years ago. He's 3-1 to be the top Dutch scorer. But yeah, Ronald Koeman as manager again, his second spell, got to the semis at the Euros. But I suppose, where do you guys see the Dutch falling this summer, gents? Because I've got the odds in front of me here. What stage do you think their summer finishes?
What's their route? What could they get in the? They get out the group, I think. But what do they get in the 32 game and the 16 game? What's the possibilities?
Who knows? In all honesty, Adam, because I've done a couple of these predictors, and every single time I end up throwing up different.
Mate, they're not in my. I'll be honest, they're not in my top 5. They're not in my. No. Maybe not top 8. Maybe,
and they won't be in the bookies either. But the Dutch are still a formidable outfit. I mean, they got to the Euros in 2024, which I was obviously at and watched the game. It wasn't a particularly great game, but notwithstanding that, England had to beat them. You look at this Dutch side. I grew up in an era watching the '78 World Cup when I was about 10 years of age, and these great Dutch players that were there. It was the back end of Cruyff in terms of his international career. I don't think he went to that tournament, did he? Because he had a problem in his private life. But you saw these great players that were there playing for the Dutch side, and you've seen obviously other players that have come through, like Ruud Gullit and this great generation of Dutch players. This generation doesn't have it. And if Memphis Depay is your answer, then I'm concerned what the question is. But you still expect them to have an impact in the tournament. I think they'll get quite easily out of the group stages and probably get past the 32 into the 16s. But do I see them as a team that is a dark horse that comes out and suddenly surprises people? We've seen certain players like Virgil van Dijk have inauspicious seasons. Yeah. So you look at it and say, well, despite the fact this has got a great footballing nation, despite the fact we look at total football in our mind's eye and think that we're playing total football in the Premier League with Man City, this isn't a team built to win anything. And despite the arrogance of Ronald Koeman, I don't think we're going to see much of an impression on this tournament from the Dutch.
Where are they at odds-wise, Sean?
Yeah, so to go out in the round of 16, it's just over 3-1. Quarter-final exits 4-1, semis 8-1, runner-up 16s, and winner is 18-1. Actually, I'm reliably informed the winner of that group, if Netherlands were to win that group, gets the runner-up of Group C. So probably not Scotland, probably Morocco. but yeah, that's who they get in the next round.
Talk to me about World Cup dark horses, because I think you've got one here that I was talking about at the weekend that I do actually fancy to go quite deep in the tournament. Go for it, man.
Okay, yeah, I've picked out 3 here. Yeah, one from Europe, one from Asia, one from Africa. There is always one at a World Cup, isn't there? You think Roger Mila in Cameroon, Bulgaria with Stoichkov, Turkey and South Korea finishing 3rd and 4th in 2002, that kind of thing. I think quite a popular choice with a lot of punters this summer will be Norway. They're 25-1 to win it all, 11-1 to make the final. They've got Erling Haaland and Martin Odegaard, so proper top-class linchpins there if they can get over the shock of not having that kickabout with the Scots pre-tournament. Like Scotland, it is their first World Cup appearance since 1998, but the sheer amount of goals that they scored in qualifying makes them kind of stand out as capable of causing some shocks. They managed 37 goals in 8 matches, miles above any other European team, over 20 goals more than France, who I think objectively, if you were to discuss the attacking talent available, probably have the best attack in the tournament, more than Belgium, more than Spain, England, Portugal, you name it. A semi-final run off the back of that is 4-1, while Haaland is 14-1 for the Golden Boot. And as I mentioned last week, actually, with BetMGM, if you bet a tenner on the Golden Boot winner, you get a £2 free bet for every goal that they score at the tournament. So I'm sure Haaland, even though Norway are dark horses, I'm sure he'll be popular with that. The other two that we've earmarked are Japan and Morocco, guys. Now, both made their impact 4 years ago at kind of different stages, really. Japan, as I mentioned, made a big statement in the groups, beating Spain and Germany, then went out at the first knockout tie to Croatia. Morocco, they won their group and then knocked out Spain, knocked out Portugal, and then lost to France in the semis, eventually finished fourth. They're technically the reigning AFCON champions, 50-1 to win this outright, 20s to make the final, 9-1 to go to the semis again. Japan, it's almost a continuity factor that could work for them. They've had a core bunch for years, same manager for years. They're 66-1 outright, 22s to make the final, and the same as Morocco, 9-1 to make the semis, guys. What one of those was it you fancied?
Morocco, mate. Morocco. For all the reasons that you just said there, I don't think they're going to go and win it. I just think climate's going to play a massive part here. They're obviously going to be accustomed to that. And I just think the previous performances at tournaments, what they've done at AFCON as well, I think they're going to go deep. I think we'll definitely see them in the quarterfinals. Whether we get them in the semis, reliant on how the draw plays out. I just think Morocco, out of the three that you've mentioned there, would be mine. Where are you at?
Possibly. It's interesting that we talk about the climate, but I think, in that part of the world, I mean, I live down in Spain, which is not too far away from Morocco, and the climate is the climate, but it's not as humid as it is in America.
Yeah.
The humidity in America will be a unique factor that, irrespective of whether you've got it in your indigenous makeup that you play in hot weather, humidity is a whole different ballgame.
Of course. Where are you at, Sean?
Out of the three, obviously Norway are the kind of the shortest odds, albeit all three are long odds. I think it really does. I agree with you. I think it depends on where they finish in the group and what that means for their path in the knockouts. Ultimately, I think me and Simon said it last week, like the way that this one's set up, it almost doesn't really start getting spicy until
You're
maybe
100% right.
last 16.
Yeah.
Something like
Do
that.
you think the Moroccans beat the Scottish in the group stages?
Yeah, I think they should. I hope they don't, but I think they should. I think they're a better team than Scotland, but I will hold out hope. And as the game gets closer, no doubt delude myself into thinking Scotland 3, Morocco 0.
Let's have a quick flirt with next season on the domestic scene, mate. We've been speaking about City a moment or two ago with Enzo Maresca and all that type of carry on. What's the expectations there for the 26-27 season?
Yeah, I heard you last talking about Enzo Maresca, the contract situation, things like that. Assuming that does get sorted and he is the manager, you're kind of looking at City 5-2 second favourites for the Premier League title next season and 7-1 for the Champions League, which makes them round about the same as Barcelona and Real Madrid in the betting for that, behind PSG, Arsenal and Bayern. I was actually chatting to a Chelsea fan earlier in the work, and he's convinced Enzo Maresca will bring the best back out of Phil Foden. But even elsewhere, the Man City squad looks in really good nick for him to take over generally, I think. I mean, Bernardo Silva will be a big miss in the dressing room as well as on the pitch, but you wouldn't say it's a squad that kind of needs major surgery, would you? And with that in mind, I suppose, what does success look like for season one of Maresca, if it is Maresca? Is it the title? Is it just a trophy? What do you reckon?
I think... Like you say, it's not broke. The Man City thing isn't broke. So therefore, if he comes in and gives them a new bit of impetus and what have you, and we see the back end of Manchester City's season for the majority of next season, I think they'll compete. Arsenal is still going to be very, very tough. The shackles are off now, aren't they? Arsenal can go and play a little bit. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Areola does at Liverpool. I think we're going to have a really competitive season. You've mentioned Alonso in there. They don't have European football. They've got a free run, really, Chelsea, next season, haven't they?
You've got Carrick that's got to manage now. He's not taken over for someone else's mess. He's now the manager. There's a whole raft of subplots that are going to be fascinating to watch. But the vacuum opportunity to be filled is Arsenal's. They've won the Premier League. Everyone else is in a slight state of flux because they've got new and uncertain circumstances, with new managers coming in, picking up from legacy managers, and new managers coming up and picking up from managers that have failed, and new managers that are coming in now that have been appointed that are no longer interim managers, and all come into play. You've got a manager stepping up to Liverpool that, when he finished 6th with Bournemouth, is a revelation. If he finishes 6th with Liverpool, will be an aberration.
Yep.
So you've got all of these, conundrums, but the opportunities is Arsenal's now, and the question will be, is do they evolve as a side? Because I don't think Arteta wants to play the way they played in the Champions League final, and he only played that way out of necessity, and we can all criticise it. The fascinating thing will be, does he pivot? What do they buy? Do they strengthen in a position of great strength and take advantage of the fact that the opposition may not be in their best order? Interesting. But I think Man City, well, of course they're going to be competitive. Of course they're going to be competitive.
Top man, Sean. Thank you very much for your time, mate. Much appreciated.
Cheers, lads.
There you go. That was a look ahead with the latest odds, all thanks to BetMGM. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. You've got to be over 18, begambleaware.org.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18 plus, gambleaware.org.
You're listening to Adam Catterall in for Jim White with Simon Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com.
You've played a lot of football in Thailand, of course. Are you there now? Or are you in LA? I can't work out where you are.
I'm in LA at the minute, but I played the last season in Thailand.
Yeah. What's the humidity out there for you? How much of a sort of not an eye opener was it? But you can't really prepare for that unless you're out there, right?
You can't really prepare for it, and you don't really get used to it. There's not a time in the whole season where I thought, right, now I'm used to the conditions. It's how can I adapt my game to be able to survive? Am I going to have to time my runs? Am I going to have to dribble once and then keep it simple? Am I going to have to defensively? Am I going to have to know when and where to press? Because I can't go every time. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the England guys are going to have. It's a similar conditions, probably not as hot, but that's what the guys are going to have to figure out over the two friendly games is I can't go every time. I'm going to have to choose my moments. And I think we saw in New Zealand, even like the Anthony Gordons and the Ollie Watkins who go. Even those guys were choosing their moments. Ngamoa played very well on the right, but he didn't go 1v1 every time. He kept it simple sometimes. And that's the way it's going to have to be.
It's a weird feeling, is it, Andros? I remember going to Hong Kong quite a lot pre-season tours, and you can't breathe, can you? It's like you're trying to sprint and you feel like you're going to like pass out from not being able to breathe. Do you think that the manager will have to make sure he's using the squad in this World Cup? You know, in those games where you're playing in those conditions, even the game, when we get to the last 16, if that's Mexico in Mexico City, he has to use a squad of players, doesn't he?
Yeah, 100%, Gabby. And I think that's why we spoke about the wingers he has. There's probably no real difference in a Gordon or a Rashford or a Saka.
Get ready to get the ultimate football fan winning feeling with talkSPORT Win.
Because this summer, you and a mate could be jetting off to watch England versus Panama in New Jersey live at the FIFA World Cup 2026 with Adidas, including tickets, flights, accommodation and more.
Go to talksport.com/win to enter now, and you could be soaking up the incredible atmosphere at the FIFA World Cup 2026. For the chance to win every football fan's trip of a lifetime, enter now at talksport.com/win.
Morning, it's talkSPORT I'm Adam Catterall. Simon Jordan alongside me, as he always is at this time of day. It will change, actually, in the next couple of days because you're going to be on from 1 o'clock in the afternoon, aren't you, mate? Because you're going to be over in the States.
Yeah, we're doing... because we're 5 hours behind, aren't we?
There you go. Getting you closer to the World Cup from... will it be a penthouse in New York? Is that how you're rocking? Are they looking after you?
Yes. Yeah. Reluctantly, they've been kicked and dragged, screaming to looking after me. If they had their way, they'd probably put me in a hostel. But they didn't get their way. So I'm in a decent hotel, much to their eternal chagrin.
That is a YouTube short that I would love to see you doing a holiday in a hostel, mate.
Well, they did it when we went to Catterall because we went to a hotel and I walked through the door. It was like the Bates Motel. It was like some kid cycling around the corner in The Shining in a tricycle. I said, I'm not staying here. It's got a 7-Eleven on the side of it. So I moved somewhere else. And fortunately, we got a lot of access as a result of it. But listen, New York's a fabulous town.
I've been told that you're doing it from the 50th floor of the World Trade Center.
Correct. Down at Wall
There you
Street.
go. What a beautiful setting that would be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There you go. So make sure you're tuning in throughout the course of that on the talkSPORT YouTube channels as Simon and Jim pair up once again at the back end of this week. Now, before we talk boxing, after 12 o'clock today, we're going to get stuck into this the developing situation at Real Madrid regarding Florentino Perez winning the Real Madrid presidential election. Shock horror. I don't think it's a shock horror for anybody.
Yeah, well, he called the election, didn't he?
Yeah,
he was in situation for another 2 or 3 years, so the fact he called it would have given you a clue that he thought he was going to win it.
Well, interesting that the actual percentage splits on the actual vote, because Riquelme did actually all right. He got a third of the vote, didn't he? But would you say it's down to the timing as to why he's done that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know why he called an election, but he obviously felt that he could win it more convincingly and wanted to cement some of his own positions. Yeah, I mean, bringing it forward early. I don't know against previous elections as to how he's stood unopposed in 2 or 3 of these recent presidential elections, however long he's been there. So I don't know what the normal mix is when they're going up against one another. But he made the cornerstone.
It's the first time it's been contested, hasn't it, in about 20 years? Is that what it is?
Yes, under his presidency, absolutely. So there's no real blueprint to suggest that the guy's done well or not done well.
Yeah.
And there'll always be an appetite for someone for change. So whether that appetite is reflected in the 35% ratio, and that's a good indication, I don't know. But a cornerstone of Perez is about Madrid being the biggest club in the world, about the fact that he's taken them to being the biggest club in the world. They're having a little bit of a famine at this moment in time, and bringing Mourinho back in.
What do you make of that? Bringing Jose back?
I've always been an admirer of Jose Mourinho. I think there's 2 sides to him. I think there's the managerial side that you see in the public domain, and you see that side, and there's also the behind-the-scenes side. I think he's a very considered thinker. I think he courts controversy. I think these personalities, these characters always do. They're flawed in their perspective, so he has certain aspects of his behaviour that people won't like. I mean, Jim has a real problem with the antics in that Euro final where he got in the referee's face, and other issues where he's done things before and he always courts controversy, and he got on the wrong side of the argument when he questioned the boy over the racism of Vinicius Jr. when he questioned him, and he got the wrong side of that conversation, and so there's a distaste towards that. But I happen to think he's an elite manager.
Is he what Real Madrid need now, given the amount of big personalities and big egos that they've got in that dressing room?
Well, look, I mean, I would normally say if you want someone to do something, you get someone that's done it previously as a good example. A, from employing somebody so they know what they're employing, but the most recent appointments for Real Madrid, specifically Alonso, has been uninspiring in terms of Perez's decision-making. Is it right that the dressing room needs to have its mind concentrated? Rumour suggests it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as I said earlier on in the show about the relationship between Mbappe and Bellingham, you know, a lot of that can be gossip, but notwithstanding it, often the apple doesn't fall far from the truth tree in terms of gossip being something that's supported by substance. It's an interesting direction of travel, because I would have, if we would have sat here in isolation, you and I, and said, where do you think Mourinho's going? Do you think he'll ever go back to Madrid? And when you watch his career path and you go Spurs, Roma, Fenerbahce, Benfica, you don't see that as an upward move. And then go back to the summit. You're going back to the summit again. Wherever Real Madrid might be at this moment in time, they're still in many people's minds the blueprint for what a football club, the world's biggest football club, should look like in terms of its legacy, its funding, its scale, the fact that every player seems to want to end up there at some points.
Well, as a person that's owned football clubs, what do you make of the presidential elections of what happens at Real Madrid?
Well, I think it's unique. What do I reckon about Real Madrid? It's unique. It's one of those unique...
The structure of actually putting somebody in charge, like through a voting system like that.
Well, I think it has its merits, but the funding mechanism of this club is very different. You've got the socios that fund aspects of the football club. You've got the scale of the football club. It's the club of the country to some extent. Real Madrid is the club of the country. It's the club of the Principality. It is the country's club. Now, the Catalonians will have something different to say about that, because obviously Barcelona is theirs. but it has a whole different set of scales. We saw years ago when they were having challenges getting into the Champions League because of the economic landscape of financial fair play, and they sold a piece of waste ground to the municipality for 100 million quid to be able to qualify. So we know they make the rules up as they go along, and it's a unique phenomenon. And that's one of the things that always surprises me about people that go in, for example, Man United, and they go in there and they're caught in the headlights. I can see from the outside there's a uniqueness to these football clubs that requires a certain mentality to be able to hand the outside influence, the pressures internally, the scale of the football club. Yet all these guys that are supposedly going into these clubs seem to fall foul of it.
Yeah.
And it's a big surprise to them. So with that in mind, Perez is a big-time operator. He was one of the intellectual capital behind the ideals for the European Super League, primarily because he probably wants to put his steel in parts of the Middle East and take opportunities as a result of that. But he's a big hitter, and he knows the influence and power that being in the position that he has, and he wields it with a great deal of authority. And I wouldn't wager against Mourinho being successful again, because I think this is another lease of life for Mourinho. He loves to prove people wrong. He won't escape him, because he's not an obtuse man, that the direction of travel for his career was sort of flatlining and declining. So here he comes again. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mourinho does something that people would be surprised that he does, which is come back and win something with Madrid.
They are a massive player when we're talking about the domino effects of the transfer market, aren't they, within the summer? And obviously him coming in, saying that he's going to spend £150 million on a particular player, whoever that may be. There's loads of rumours flying around. Michael Olise's name's been thrown in there. That then will trigger whoever gains that £150 million to go and spend it elsewhere, and that might affect the whole landscape within Europe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, let's be honest. The predominant spenders are the Premier League clubs. The scale that we spend dwarfs. I mean, Madrid and Barcelona in recent times have managed to regalvanise themselves. They've sold off their broadcasting rights to be able to recalibrate themselves economically. But Madrid haven't got enormous amount of money. My understanding is they're going to have to sell to buy. So whatever way you look at this marketplace, whatever club you are, the market will be stimulated by business being done. So to suggest that Madrid, on a marketplace that does 2, 3, 4 billion in transfer sales across the European landscape, if we look at the Premier League last year, what did it do? A couple of billion?
Yeah.
And then you look at the Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga, and so on and so forth. They all come together. It's probably somewhere about 3.5 billion. To suggest £150 million transfer, which is 5% of the transfer market, is going to move the market, probably isn't the case. But notwithstanding that, it's who they sign. And you look at people like, I don't suggest he's going this time anytime soon, but people like Erling Haaland that I believe will eventually end up at Real Madrid. I always find that something I resist, because I want the English clubs. I know that the only thing English about them now is geography, because the owners, the players, and the managers aren't English, but we can still cling on to that last vestige of the fact is...
We're getting to watch them on our time zone.
We are. And so, look, I mean, I always resist the idea. I try to make the case for Man United being the world's biggest club. I try to make the case for the Premier League throwing out the biggest clubs in world football. But there is an irrefutable fact that the scale of Barcelona and Real Madrid, and with their digital footprints, which is a massive measurement. When I was looking at buying Sheffield Wednesday, I looked at the digital footprint of these sort of football clubs, because you see the scale of what goes on with it and the numbers that go on inside clubs. And, you know, with the Man Uniteds, Palace have got 5 million followers. Something like Real Madrid have got something like 200, 300, 400 million. And whilst people say, what does that mean? What it means is when you're looking at a business, you look at the opportunities to generate revenue, and digital footprints are a big indicator of what you can achieve when you're building out a football team built for success and commercial returns as well.
Same attitude towards fighters as well, which leads us on nicely, my man, because we are going to get stuck into a little bit of boxing after the news. Don't go anywhere.
So what do you think of Chelsea keeping hold of him? How important is he to Chelsea?
Well, he's everything. He's the star. He's only got 7 years left on his contract, so The power might
Time
be.
is running out. He's probably sweating over it right now.
The power might be with the owners, but actually it's not fully with the owners, because if you've got a player who so desperately wants to get out, that's a toxic situation to be in. Now, hopefully the owners will have made that statement with Xabi Alonso, and then will make more statements with the players that they bring in. So not just to Cole Palmer, but to Mark Cucurella. You have to say he's one of the best left backs in the world. You have to, as annoying as he might be, and I get it, even coming from a Chelsea angle, you want him in your side, not against you.
You do.
Enzo Fernandez, one of the cleverest, technically brilliant players, because he's not quick, but the way his first touch, his second touch, his pass awareness, and he gets into the box. You know, that Chelsea number 8, who someone else used to do that back in the day. He's not quite as good as Frank, but he can do it. This is an absolutely key summer for Chelsea in terms of not just trying to bring those good players in now to challenge for the Premier League and Champions League, but actually not lose your best players that you've got already.
They finished 10th, as you have mentioned already, a season way below standards for Chelsea.
talkSPORT Sports Update, powered by the Nissan Van range, supporting van owners to get the job done. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van Centre.
With the headlines at 2 minutes past 12, I'm Tom Clayton. Good afternoon. Ben Stokes and Gus Atkinson could be dropped for the second test with New Zealand next week after an incident in a nightclub in the early hours of Monday morning. England's cricketers were already subject to a midnight curfew following allegations of a drinking culture. Here's Wisden editor Lawrence Booth.
Stokes was part of the management team that imposed that curfew, and he is the one who's now turned around and broken it. So it's very hard now, I think, for him to hang on to the authority that he's had over this team, and England face a very difficult decision.
More on this on talkSPORT's Cricket YouTube channel. Now, the independent football regulator is talking to West Ham following historical allegations about their co-owner. David Sullivan categorically denies he pressured young models into sex as the owner of the Daily and Sunday Sport. Without a criminal charge, Simon Jordan doesn't see how Sullivan can be forced into selling his stake at West Ham.
I don't see where the IFR goes with this, besides making a statement that we're in the business of making sure that our job is seen to be visible. He's a shareholder. How do they force him to sell his shares? How do they tell him what the share price of that scenario is? I'm assuming he might want to sell his shares anyway.
Iran's FA says the country's ticket allocation has been revoked 2 days out from the World Cup. That means supporters who've already made plans will be unable to attend matches. Now, it's talkSPORT's understanding that Kieran McKenna is increasingly likely to leave Ipswich this summer. He's a top target to replace Marco Silva at Fulham, and they're weighing up whether or not to pay his £8 million release clause. Meanwhile, we understand Leeds keeper Carl Darlow is a target for Manchester United this summer. The last player to move from Leeds to Old Trafford was Alan Smith in 2004. And the administrator suspended for asked for what former World Cup... excuse me, I'm going to start the story again. And the administrator suspended for asking what former World Cup winner Maggie Alfonsi knows about men's rugby has quit. Matthew Smith has stood down from representing Warwickshire at the RFU. More at talksport.com.
talkSPORT News.
A man's been arrested over what is being described as a sickening stabbing in Belfast, and a pupil's been arrested over a knife attack at a school in Manchester. Sinead has more at 5:30.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. Keep spring journeys safe. Visit your local centre or quickfit.com to book your tyres, MOTs and servicing so you can drive away happy every time.
Sunny spells and showers for most of us. Some areas staying dry. Showers most frequent in the north and west. Wet across central and eastern Scotland. Feeling cool.
Get engagement. Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
Proper. Now we're here. Now we're into the crux of the show. Welcome to it. It is talkSPORT. It is White and Jordan. I'm Adam Catterall in for Jim White. Ahead of him getting stuck into the new time of 1 o'clock in the afternoon as the World Cup is upon us. Mr. Jordan, very kindly, he's still here as he jets off tomorrow.
Indeed.
And joining us in the studio, the one, the only Mr. Eddie Oladipo. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, we're good. We're good. You know, this is a good 12-1, isn't it? I'm looking forward to this. Loads of boxing stuff to talk about. I jet off to America as well. I jet off to the World Cup.
When'd you go?
I go Thursday morning.
Look at this.
Thursday morning. First game, Brazil-Morocco. You know what I mean? Just a bit of Neymar and Vinicius
Are you in
Junior.
New York, are you?
I am.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the Brazil-Morocco game on Saturday. Yeah.
So we can meet up for a nice coffee.
Yeah, he'll be in the box, mate. You'll have to have again in the suite.
They've got him the penthouse suite in the Hilton. They've got me renting a room.
It's 34 degrees in New York.
Wow.
And raining.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
Brutal. Listen, lots going on in the world of boxing. We're going to be speaking to Ben Shalom very, very shortly. Lerone Richards is going to be on the show as well. He's actually going to be in the studio, which is great because we want to shine a little bit of light on what happened to him last week. But let's have a little bit of a reflection on what happened at the weekend just gone. Obviously, Zuffa Boxing stepped out of the Apex. They came to the south coast of England, Bournemouth, the BIC, where Chris Billam-Smith took on Ryan Riziki. It was an absolute slugfest war. The card itself delivered some big moments. But Sam, your observations of Chris doing his thing at the weekend in his hometown?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see Chris back in the ring. Nice to see him put a performance on. I think it was hard work. I think it was a brutal fight. It was, to me, watching that fight was like watching Fabio Wardley fight Daniel Dubois without perhaps some of the gore. But notwithstanding that, Chris came through a very difficult. I thought he made it more difficult for himself during the fight than I anticipated he would. But I think Riziki was a tough customer, but there were levels in this fight, and I thought that Chris showed the levels. What it tells me about Chris going forward, I don't know in terms of who he fights next and whether he gets another shot at a world title or whether he wins another world title, because I think any of us, with all due respect to Chris, who we all like, don't see Chris beating Jai Opetaia. Where it lands, I don't know, but he did his job, and it was a brutal performance. That's the sort of fight that takes a hell of a lot out of both fighters, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Normally, when you look at the person that loses and you think, okay, it takes a lot out of them, but that would have taken a lot out of Chris Billam-Smith as well. I mean, that Ryan Riziki, and you could tell from the build-up during fight week that this was a no-jokes type fighter. He was coming over to win, obviously like unbeaten, but he just looked tough as old boots, didn't he? And it was a fight from the very first round. Like boxing normally tries to give you feel-out rounds. There was no feel-out, nothing. I mean, they went straight at it immediately.
Yeah.
Headbutts, elbows, everything. And I think Chris knew from the very first second that he was going to be in a bit of a war.
You know that it's a rough one when someone's getting a point deducted in the second round for a headbutt.
Yeah.
Repetitive headbutts.
Yeah, and you know as well, when they start breathing out of there, you know what, after the first couple of rounds, you know, okay, these guys have given everything in the first 6 or 7 minutes, and then it's a case of who can hang on.
Yeah.
And Chris is a big, big cruiserweight, and in the end, I think that kind of shone through and came through. And the fact that Simon mentioned, he's just a better boxer. Riziki's tough, but in terms of boxing ability, it wasn't really there. It was just grit. He was square on. I didn't know if it was orthodox or southpaw because he was throwing punches from everywhere. He just came to win and fight. But yeah, brutal fight. And look, the winner really should go on. Chris Billam-Smith should go on to fight Jai Opetaia. That's the easy one to make, right? Jai's with Zuffa. Chris is with Zuffa. They've circled each other for like 12 to 14 months. Jai's been on this show with you, and he's had a bit of a foul language outburst saying how much he wants to fight Chris. So that should be the one to make. But I don't know if Chris is ready for it. But ultimately, what's Chris, 34?
Yeah.
This is it, isn't it? This is it.
It's hard because we in one aspect of boxing, we're talking about all these boxing promoters coming together under the same platform and fights being really easy to make. Everybody's working together. And then you've got Zuffa over here who are kind of doing something themselves on their own, signing fighters with a very different attitude. And you're right to point out there, the next logical fight based on that model for Chris Billam-Smith would be Jai Opetaia. But he's also talking about unifications with other champions that are in this division. I say unifications, even though he's no longer the IBF champion, having that stripped off him a little earlier on this year. So that actual story around everything that's happening, the ramifications of what comes off the back of the weekend, is still a bit messy from a Zuffa point of view.
Yeah, Benavidez to Chris has caused a lot of problems. Benavidez has caused a lot of problems to a lot of cruiserweights because all of a sudden he's jumped up and he's looked so good. Everyone now is screaming Jai Benavidez or Benavidez Bivol. And
or him to come back down.
Or even for him to come back up. Or even Benavidez to go up one more to heavyweight. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but you feel like he could chin a few heavyweights.
I mean, you wonder where Chris can go. I mean, ultimately, you've just seen Benavidez take care of Zurdo Ramirez. You saw what Zurdo Ramirez did to Chris Billam-Smith.
Yeah. Yes.
You look at Jai Opetaia, and as much as we like Chris and we want him to do well, it's a reach to suggest that given the performance he put in against Zurdo, I saw him against Masternek. He made hard work of Masternek, but came through it. And we've seen what Masternek has done subsequently. But the bottom line is you look at Chris Billam-Smith and say, what do you do? Where are you headed towards? Are you headed towards a paycheck or a world title? Because I think you're going to get a paycheck, but I don't think you're going to get a world title. And how big that paycheck is, I don't know, because you've got this Zuffa situation. Benavidez has looked at Zuffa and gone, oh, who cares about that, right?
Yeah.
So, and you make a case for Chris going against either one of those and go, it's a very hard night.
From their business model, though, Chris and Jai works for them. Because Chris is what is he, number 3, number 4 with a ring? Yeah. And obviously the ring holder
You've got
is...
Jai Bhatia sitting in a studio a year ago saying that I will have the fight for nothing. But that was when Chris had a belt.
I was just about to say that, and that's when Jai had a belt.
Yeah.
So they both had belts. So it was Jai's dream at the time was undisputed, and he kept on screaming that and shouting that undisputed. Now all of a sudden he's been stripped of the IBF. Chris has lost his belt, as you mentioned, to Zerdo.
He's the ring holder, though, isn't he?
He's the ring holder. But now all of a sudden, Chris coming to the table for Jai. Like if we were to get Jai on the phone and say, "Do you want to fight Chris?" It might be like, "Well, maybe not as much as I wanted to 12 months ago."
Did we learn anything about Chris in that fight? I mean, we've seen him come back and the fights. Brandon Clanton, this fight. Have we learned anything about Chris?
I thought
the loss of Zerdo emerged.
I think his ring IQ is definitely going up. I think he's still the same type of fighter. He's a brawler, isn't he? He gets it. He likes it on the inside, and I think he's got an incredible amount of will to get through fights. I think skill set, he is getting better, and I thought his ring IQ, the way that he managed it, because that's uncomfortable. Kid comes in and sticks his head on you in the first couple of rounds. He's got his elbows in your face and the forearms going and what have you. You've got to have a little bit of something upstairs to be able to navigate that and manage that, and not lose heart when you're chinning him a couple of times.
And also, and I guess one of the most important things in terms of fans and bums and seats, value for money.
Yes.
What we learned from Chris is like, okay, if I pay my ticket, which isn't easy for working class, if I pay my ticket and I tune in, I'm going to get an entertaining fight. So I think that's important because we do see some boring fights, and Chris isn't one of those guys that's in a boring fight. It's the final chapter for Chris. Whatever he does next for the next 2 years, we'll close the curtain.
Do we see any merit in Vidal Riley stepping into the ring with Chris Billingsmith at this stage in his career?
I think Vidal's in a really good spot right now.
It's a dangerous fight that for Chris, I think. You know, it's because Vidal's fresh.
Yeah.
Vidal's fresh, and as you mentioned, Chris has had war. Like Chris will give you a war. It's just how he fights. Unfortunately, he's not going to be on his toes and boxing and jabbing and moving out the way. Whereas Vidal's just almost just fresh, isn't it? I know Masternet gave him some problems. It's a bit of a step up for Vidal, but it's one that Vidal would want to take. I don't see the merits in Chris taking the Vidal fight. It's almost a bit of a step backwards. He will be looking towards Benavidez or Jai. Whether or not he can win those fights, obviously that's a different conversation. But if you're Shane McGuigan, you're like, that's what we want now. That's it.
Let's pick out who else has been the real deal this week with Selco Builders Warehouse.
The Real Deal on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. For the latest special offers, pick up this month's Real Deals in branch or view online at selcobw.com.
Now, let's not be messing about. The big story on Friday, gentlemen, is that Katie Taylor's going home. Their Croke Park gig is on. It's an opportunity for her to become a 3-time undisputed champion, but I think that's kind of the secondary part of this story. It's a celebration of someone's career. Adi, you're going to be right in the mix with all this. The announcement on Friday it brought a smile to my face because I know it's been going on for such a long period of time. Obviously, the jurisdiction and everything surrounding the politics of this in Ireland has been a bit of a nightmare, but Matchroom did incredibly well. Eddie Hearn's pushed this right over the line, and he's finally got an icon her moment.
Yeah, and look, credit to Brian Peters as well. I think it's almost been a collective effort to get her the big fight back home. I say big fight, to get her a fight back home. And there was a part of me that wanted it to be against someone. I was screaming.
You're thinking Serrano or something like that?
Yeah, honestly, yeah. But unfortunately, when you fought Serrano 3 times and you've won 3 times, the 4th one might be difficult to sell. There was some talk about a Chantel Cameron trilogy. But these are risky fights for her to go in her last one. But I wanted a bigger name, but then I just kind of had to take a step back and say this is just almost a celebration of Katie Taylor. Right. It's not really a case of Katie Taylor having a fight, because we've seen Katie Taylor have so many fights in her career. She's not someone that, needs another name added to the CV. She will go down for me as the greatest female fighter of all time. So we don't necessarily need another big name at the end of it. I think it's almost a celebration of her, a celebration of Irish boxing, and her just almost getting that final swan song to say goodbye to everyone where it all started. And I think that's the story.
Question for both of you. Will this be the hottest ticket?
I've asked this of Irish people just because 82,000's a lot.
Massive a lot.
It's a big, you know what I mean? And normally, even when it's AJ and Fury doing fights over here, they still need the dance partner. They still need someone opposing them. They still need the press conference to go crazy, right? To kind of make sure they sell it out. And I've asked, will she be able to sell it out? And everyone has repeatedly told me absolutely yes. So if that's the case, and I defer to them, they have more knowledge on sort of the love that Katie gets in Ireland than I do, then I say it will be the hottest ticket in town. But still, it's a lot because it's Katie Taylor versus someone that we don't really know and we're not quite sure yet of the undercard. I wish it was a celebration of Irish boxing. I wish Pierce O'Leary was on it. I wish Anthony Kakache was on it. You know what I mean? A full celebration. Get Mick Condon out of retirement. Let him fight Josh Warrington. Everyone, basically.
But that would detract a tad from it being Katie Taylor, wouldn't it? Because if we start to make it about Irish boxing, then really what it is, as you said from the outset, is a celebration of Katie Taylor. Pricing policy will determine to some extent how much the audience becomes. But if she does get, and I think they probably wouldn't put it there, they didn't think she was going to get it because she doesn't want the indignation of saying she gets 40, 50,000 fans in an 82,000 position, that it's a remarkable reflection on the scale of opportunity that now exists in women's boxing, but also specifically and explicitly about her achievements. So both of them, to go to your point, is a celebration of the sort of flag-bearing position that she's operated in, both from an excellence point of view, but also for people's perception of her.
Yeah, I think when you've been in Ireland and been around Irish people, she's bigger than boxing. We're talking about a sporting icon, a fantastic human being who has achieved so much. Personally, for me, she's the greatest female fighter of all time. I know that Clarissa will be on to me, and what about this, and the other? But I think just the level of opponent that she's fought, the level of opponent that she's beaten, she's had some dubious ones along that way. I don't think we can get away from that, but she's been absolutely magnificent. And I think that you're going to get a very different demographic of fan coming to this fight than you would, for example, AJ and Fury. I think that casual fan from a boxing point of view will all want to be AJ versus Fury. If we get that at Wembley Stadium, that'd be fantastic. But I think you're going to get kids, you're going to get grandmas, you're going to get aunties, uncles. Every man and his dog is going to be wanting to be there for this massive sporting moment. And let's not forget, fighting at Croke Park doesn't happen. Last person to do this was Muhammad Ali in 1972. So this is a huge, huge moment for Irish sport. I genuinely think it could be the hottest ticket in boxing.
And also, to add to that, I think because people know the struggles and the stories of getting it at Croke Park, it's almost a case of we are going because, A, it might not happen again, as you mentioned, for 5 decades.
Yeah.
So you've got to go and enjoy these things because they don't come around.
You're not going to get another Katie Taylor.
You're never going to get another Katie Taylor, yeah. And we pray to God we get one, but I doubt we will. And I do hope, I know it is the Katie Taylor show, and you're right. I hope Amanda Serrano does fly out. I hope she's watching ringside because I think their stories are so intertwined. I think what Katie's done...
She was unlucky in the first 2 fights.
She was unlucky in the first 2, and I think their stock have risen because of fighting each other. I mean, Katie would already have been a superstar, but those fights with Amanda at MSG and then obviously nearly 60 million watching it on Netflix, I just hope Amanda's ringside and they can almost just both have a cuddle at the end for what they've achieved together.
Wholesome. You want a wholesome moment?
I'm a wholesome.
You're a wholesome type of guy, aren't you, mate?
Type of guy. I haven't invited Clarissa. She might still.
There will be nothing wholesome if Clarissa's there, mate.
No.
There'll be a kick-off somewhere. Anyway, that was a look ahead to our pick for this week. Real Deal with Selco Builders Warehouse. For the latest special offers, pick up this month's Real Deals in branch or view online at selcobw.com.
The Real Deal on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's Real Deals at selcobw.com.
You know, like, without Harry Kane, we are screwed.
He dropped quite deep again. I don't mind.
You know what's annoying me, right? And I've been seeing it on social media, right? People winding me up already, all right? If I hear England fans coming on here moaning about Harry Kane dropping deep, I swear I'm going to lose my head.
I totally agree.
I'm going to lose my head. The guy has scored 50 goals this season.
61.
He scored 61 goals.
In all competitions.
He scored 61 goals, right? And people are moaning about him dropping deep. When are people going to understand that is how Harry Kane plays?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, that is his game. He drops deep, he gets in pockets, he's hard to pick up, and then he'll find the box.
He starts the build-up.
Yeah, and it's like,
come on, guys. I don't want to be hearing Harry Kane's dropping deep. Harry Kane's dropping deep. Like, we know now that is his game. That is how he plays. He scored.
But as long as we fill the space that he drops out.
Well, that's why you have Rashford, and that's why you have Saka.
That's what you need, runners from deep. You do.
Well, hearing people say Ivan Toney should start. We should start Ivan Toney because, you know, he stays up there. We need someone who's going to, you know, lead the line. Mate, drop me out. Drop me out. Like, it does my head in.
No, I'm totally in agreement with you, mate. That's what he does. That's his game. And under Tuchel at Bayern Munich, he played that way, and he's mastered his craft. Look, you obviously, when the ball is built up in the wider areas, you want Kane in the middle. Obviously in the high and wide.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he can do the most damage.
Well, he scored a great goal with the ball. He got his glancing header. He's just got magic in his body. He just knows where to score goals from anywhere.
He does.
It just winds me up. I don't want to hear it. If he's dropping deep. Yeah, he's hot. And he's probably gonna sit in that little number 10 role every now and then. Do you know what I mean? As long as you get bodies past him,
I agree. Yeah.
Rashford and runners in beyond. Like, just let Harry Kane play his game, because without him, we're nothing. We're nothing. And it just winds me up. So,
okay, all right, you've had your rent.
Get ready to get the ultimate football fan winning feeling with talkSPORT Win.
Because this summer, you and a mate could be jetting off to watch England versus Panama in New Jersey live at the FIFA World Cup 2026 with Adidas, including tickets, flights, accommodation and more.
Go to talksport.com/win to enter now, and you could be soaking up the incredible atmosphere at the FIFA World Cup 2026. For the chance to win every football fan's trip of a lifetime, enter now at talksport.com/win.
Morning, you listen to talkSPORT. I'm Adam Catterall in for Jim White. Simon Jordan alongside me and Adi Oladipo in the studio. We're talking boxing over the next hour. We're going to have Laurent Richards in the studio very, very shortly. But right now, the CEO of Boxer, Ben Shalom, very kindly is joining us. How are you, Ben? You well?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Very well indeed, mate. Come on, talk to me about this new broadcast deal. Because last time we spoke, it were all about the BBC, and now you're partnering up with DAZN. How's this all come about, mate?
It still is about the BBC. This has been a deal, to be honest, that's been a long time coming. It's a huge moment for our business. It's look, DAZN, what they've done over the past few years, if we're honest, is pretty incredible. All the big fights happen there, all the major fights happen there. It's global. It has that reach, and we can put on the big fights. The BBC, I'm incredibly proud of the work we're doing there. That has been a specific carve out in our deal. That is something that is not affected at all by the DAZN deal. But it's a huge moment for us, huge moment for our fighters, and a long time coming.
Does this make it easier as well to make those big fights, because everybody's now obviously, from a British point of view, on DAZN? So you're going to be working with Mr. Warren, Mr. Hearn?
Yeah, 100%. Look, let's be honest. I've had a few battles with those two over the years, and it has made it harder to do fights. Ultimately, the broadcasters invest so much money into the fighters, and sometimes the politics is almost above the promoter's head. So now, to be on the same platform, to be able to make the big fights, to be able to make the big fights easily as well, it's so exciting. And honestly, for myself and the team, I'm so delighted.
So we're going to see Dalton Smith and Adam Azim, Adi. It's done. There you go. When we getting it?
100% that's happening. So look, there's plenty of fights that can be made throughout it. That is one of them that will be happening very soon. But as I say, a huge deal for us, a huge deal for DAZN, the home of boxing, and to have all the promoters, all the British promoters on there as well, as you said, it is massive.
I think it's important for DAZN as well. I think when you think of what's coming with Zuffa, and they are coming, I think we're starting to see some of the big signings they're making. I think you almost have to team up a little bit, almost like the Avengers assembling, really. If you kind of put Frank and Eddie and Ben together, I think that collectively taken on Zuffa is better than everyone having their individual battles, because collectively as a group of promoters, you look at the fights they can all put on, as you say, you look at their stables. I think it's good to kind of combat what Dana White and Zuffa are going to be doing. In terms of the first fight, Ben, Callum Simpson trying to get what he lost against Troy Williamson. That's a big one as well, to go bang. Here we are on DAZN with something that I think everyone got behind the first time they fought.
Yeah, it's a monster. Honestly, the first fight we did it, Callum sells out every time, but that Leeds Arena is phenomenal. Obviously, wasn't the result that he was expecting, wasn't the performance that he wanted. It was an unbelievable night for Troy Williamson, but the rematch is absolutely huge. It will be at the Leeds Arena again on August the 8th, a complete sellout, a complete monster event as well. And as you said, unbelievable way to start, but huge fights to come. We're going to have some major nights over the next few months. And yeah, that's an absolutely massive one. I think the press conference is later today, and I expect tickets to sell out this week.
On what Ades just said there about teaming up with the other promoters on the same platform, and obviously bringing in Zuffa and what Dana White's doing, is that part of your thought process there, Ben? Is that why you've done this?
Look, we love what we do on the BBC, and it gives us the opportunity to build household names. And I'm incredibly proud, to be honest, of the work that we're doing there. It takes a while in terms of to get everything in place, but the power of the network and the platform and the work we've had to do to get it on the national broadcaster is huge. Can we put on the major pay-per-view nights, the major shows that we're used to putting on? No, we can't, and it was always going to have to be complementary. And so this was the deal that I always felt was natural. It's a deal that I've been trying to sell into broadcasters for years, is to try and, combine the big pay TV networks with terrestrial opportunities as well for fighters, particularly early on in their career. So it has been a long time coming, but it's massive. And is it because of what's going on in the market? No, this is something that we wanted to do from a long time ago. I mean, I actually had a show on Sky Sports on Saturday night as well. So you'll have seen that.
Ben's got fingers in every pie, hasn't
he? He's a well. You've just made a reference there to something that's going on. We saw a report about legal proceedings between yourself, Zuffa, Dana White. What's the story behind that? Why are you suing Dana White or Zuffa? Should I say?
To be honest, I was almost bemused by it. I was almost left with no choice. I have 3 fighters on that bill under contract. And then I'm seeing them go out on the show, and I'm thinking, is this how it works over there? These guys clearly think they're above the law. They have the show at the White House, as see on Sunday, and maybe that's the way they operate over there. And yeah, it's difficult. I guess they feel like, eventually, we'll pay him some damages, or we'll do this. But I cannot believe, I'm telling you now, I cannot believe that broadcaster is doing things like that. It's pulling stunts like that. And we sort of left us with no choice. I've got this bit of a reputation now for being litigious, but I'm really not. But when you're put in a situation where you cannot believe what's going on, and the only way to sort of,
who are the fighters? Who are the fighters that are contracted to you? Is this contracted to you as boxer?
Yeah.
Who are they?
The three main ones on the card on Saturday night, and so I'm going to let that one play out, because it's going to be a lot more embarrassing for them than myself.
Were you notified at any point? Did anybody get in contact with you and speak through a process about this
before announcements?
Before Saturday night.
Not before they were announced, and things became more and more clear. And I think, to be honest, the signing sort of became staggered. If you look at what happened, first of all, this made the most noise about the entire night was the whole legal situation. I don't think anyone was interested prior to that, but essentially it was announced late. I think one of the fighters, the main event was announced with about 5 weeks to go.
Yeah.
Then the next one came a couple of weeks later, and then the next one came a couple of weeks later. And so perhaps it was designed, there was a show that was due to be scheduled on Sky Sports on last October with my staff and with my fighters, that I had to stop. And it's almost like, I can't believe this is happening again. But as I say, for a broadcaster to operate like that, I am, in my opinion,
So who are you suing? Are you suing Zuffa or are you suing Sky? Because you're mentioning broadcaster.
We're going to have to get an injunction against both of them. Basically, damages aren't enough, Adam. You know, for us, it's not about paying us money. We can't run a business if essentially a big public American business can just come and take fighters and think that they can operate in a way that we don't, you know, and the business doesn't. So it's not about damages. It's not about suing. It's about, we're going to have to get an injunction from the court to stop this going on with our fighters, with our staff, with anyone contracted with ourselves, because it's gone on and on. And the woman, I suppose, like that and expect it to go well. And ultimately, they thought I'd be dead and buried by now. They thought that perhaps there wouldn't be anything to say about this. But you can't operate like that. And as I say, for a broadcaster that, you know, gives, you know, has sort of these virtue signaling tendencies that I was definitely thought about for many, many years, to have sort of these types of people representing them, in my opinion, it's a sorry sight, to be honest. And as I say, I was on holiday this weekend, but, you know, I had a lot of messages congratulating on my show on Saturday.
Just to finish off, and I've got to keep you quick on this, mate. I'm asking every single promoter that I speak to about the situation. Are you promoting Fury AJ?
Turkey Ali Sheikh is promoting AJ. Any promoter, and I know we have a joke about it, but I definitely am in the running for it, by the way. And I messaged Turkey today, and I'm definitely in the running. What I would say is, any promoter that really wants to promote other people's fighters is a strange person anyway. I mean, it happened on Saturday night. For anyone that wants to go and promote, what's the point? What are joke about it? I would definitely still take the opportunity to do it. But let's be honest, the promoters is Turkey Ali Sheikh, and then the representatives of each of the fighters. And yeah, it's becoming a bit ridiculous, to be honest.
I'm no doubt this is going to be soap opera for most people over the next 5 to 6 weeks. Ben, thank you very much for your time, mate.
Cheers, Ben.
And congratulations on the new TV deal. Looking forward to the rematch between Troy Williamson and Callum Simpson. The press conference for that, as Ben said, is a little later on this afternoon. Now, last week, a British fighter got an absolute stinker of a decision overseas. We're going to be welcoming Laurent Richards into the studio in a moment or two. Don't go anywhere. You just mentioned a couple of players there. Is Jude Bellingham one of your clutch players?
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course he is. I mean, Morgan Rogers is a good player, but Jude Bellingham is a world-class player. And despite the fact that maybe Jude's going through a phase in his career where people are not taking to him, and maybe there's some issues about some of his disposition, I hear certain things in Madrid from relatively reliable sources that there's no relationship between Bellingham and Mbappe. The two egos can't be in the same room. And that's maybe why Mourinho's been brought back in to try and get some order in place. But let's be under no illusion. Jude Bellingham is a game changer and a winner and a world-class footballer. And if after 75 minutes you change him for Morgan Rogers, what a hardship that is. But Jude Bellingham, by any measurement, any rational measurements, should be in the starting lineup because he is a world-class footballer. And and we've got probably 3 or 4 of them in the team, and he's one of them.
You've said that Tuchel's been brought in to win.
Yeah.
What happens if he doesn't? What's the attitude towards him if he doesn't?
Depends how he loses. And that's not me giving him a get out of jail card. I just gave you an example. If you were to play the French in the final of the World Cup, some hypothetical scenario, and we to play a game where we're bold and we play on the front foot and we're not waiting for the opposition to do something to us, we're at the opposition taking advantage and opportunities, and we go to a penalty shootout because both teams have played a wonderful game and drawn 2-0 and we lose because someone misses a penalty. What do? Say to Thomas Tuchel, you failed. I know in the binary world that I would have it sometimes. You either win or you lose. Everyone can come second. It's not difficult. Just turn up. But there is a way that England... I'm looking at this tournament going, for once, beat someone that we, on paper, can't or wouldn't be expected to. And then we'll build from that. So in every tournament, I know we beat the Germans, but this was not the Germans of previous times. So we can't use that as an example. So I'm looking at it going, if we draw one of these sides that on paper that we don't beat and the Thomas Tuchel factor comes in, then we'll build from there and we'll cross each bridge when it comes.
Ben Stokes' future as England captain is in the balance after an altercation with a young rugby player in a nightclub following the test win over New Zealand. talkSPORT's Steve Harmison says we must wait for the full facts.
It could just be two lads, wrong place, wrong time, broke a curfew out a little bit longer. And if that's the case, I mean, we've all done it.
England's cricketers are still under a midnight curfew following allegations of a team drinking culture. It's understood a Saracens academy player threw a punch at bowler Gus Atkinson, who was with Stokes in a nightclub early on Monday morning. Now, West Ham's billionaire co-owner David Sullivan categorically denies allegations of sexually exploitative behaviour. They date back to the 1980s when he was the owner of Daily and Sunday Sport newspapers. Former glamour model Sasha Wall says she auditioned for David Sullivan in his bedroom in Essex.
Then he just turns around to me and goes, "Do you know who?" and says particularly a model's name. And I say, "Yeah." He went, "Well, she's one of my special friends. Would you like to be one of my special friends?"
Sullivan has stepped down as West Ham chairman to fight what he calls the false allegations. We're hearing Crystal Palace are set to appoint Pierre Sarge as their new manager. With Lens, Sarge won the club's first ever French Cup and finished second in Ligue 1. There is more at talksport.com.
I'm Adam Catterall in for Jim White with Simon Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com. Simon's obviously here, as is Adi Oladipo, and it is a pleasure to have you in the studio, even though the circumstances that we're going to speak about, Laurent, aren't necessarily the kindest. Laurent Richards, very kindly given up a bit of time to come and join us on this Tuesday morning following a split decision loss. And I can't believe I'm even saying that. Last week out in Canada, and this is the second time that you were out there to take on Albert Ramirez for an interim world title fight. Obviously, earlier on this year, the fight was called. Was it on the day, or was it the day before that it was called?
It was on the day. It was an hour before the weigh-in.
An hour before the weigh-in, the fight was called off because he was ill.
He was ill. Yeah. So, an hour before the weigh-in, I hear a bang on my door, and I'm like, "What's that?" I'm having a nap. I open the door. Dave Coldwell's there, looking at me like, "Sit down, Laurent." I'm confused. I'm like, so I go sit down. He said, "The fight's off." I said, "No way." But Dave wouldn't lie about that. I just thought, but I was in shock an hour before the weigh-in.
Didn't he have appendicitis though?
Appendicitis, yeah.
Off the back of that, the fight gets rearranged. So you fly back out to Canada.
That's right.
Just gone. Box the kid's ears off for the best part of 12 rounds, and then get a split decision loss on your record. Just to settle a little bit now, I know you've been speaking about it. We're going to get stuck into how this has all played out, but what are your overriding thoughts at the moment?
Right now, it's a joke. I mean, fighters, we work hard in the gym, we dedicate our lives away from our kids, away from our families, and for the decision to go the wrong way like it did, it's damaging.
Can I ask you a personal question, right? Because that's two camps there, and they're not cheap.
Oh, no.
How much does it cost you?
It cost me a few grand. Obviously, you've got to work, we've got sparring partners. You've got to think about
Have you got good sponsors? Have you got people looking after you or not? How's it all working for you?
I've got one sponsor that pays me for the fight, but I don't really have much backing. I kind of do things on by myself. Sometimes, if you want to go personal, going into your direct debits and stuff not direct debits, but overdrafts and things like that, But because I believe in myself, I believe in my ability, and I know how good I can be and how far I can go, I do this.
See, that's the thing that's the thing that's annoying. And I followed Lerone Richards' career for a few years now, and I've done a couple of these fights as well. And I remember when I saw this fight announced, I was like, "Oh, this is risky. You're going away from home," but he's got to do it because of where he was and how his career's played out in the last 5 years. So when I was watching that fight, and I scored it 9-3. I think we were just speaking in the break, and I said I scored it 9-3. I think you did as well. So when I see a 9-3 scoreline, and then I see you lose, considering everything you've had to go through to get the fight, as you mentioned, the financial cost it's put on you, what a win could do. You win that belt, the next fight you're making big money because ultimately it puts you in a position where you could fight for a world title. When you don't get that victory, that's when I really sort of start to look at the sport of boxing in a negative way. And I don't look at it as incompetence from the judges, because it's not incompetence. Like 116-112 Ramirez, and I've scored it 9-3 to you. It isn't a case of what you like. And okay, it could have gone either way. Swing rounds, we hear that quite a lot. The rounds were very, very clear. Yeah. And I could have gone 10-2 you, but I've given Ramirez 1 just because you're holding a little bit. But it could have gone the other way. So when I see a split decision victory the other way, it almost makes me feel like be looked at properly, because that's a disgraceful decision.
In boxing it happens, where it's 7-5 on the scorecards and then it goes the other way to the home fighter. Even though I don't think that's acceptable, I believe that if a fighter wins a fight, they should win. But it happens in boxing. But this fight for me, when I watched it 5 times and I've scored it 10-2 to myself, and for the decision to go the other way, it's disgusting.
Simon, how do we solve this problem? Because this isn't an isolated incident, and I don't want to get into, because I've seen this happen in Canada on a couple of occasions. This is where the fight was taking place, and I don't want to go there because here in the UK we've had some absolute shocking scorecards too, as we have all around the world. How do we solve this problem?
But you know it, don't you? I mean, it's about unification of standards. It's about continuity across all the governing and sanctioning bodies, and bringing in an overarching perspective. So it takes away some of the subjectivity. It takes away the uniqueness of people being able to score in a way that best suits them, based upon whatever their motivations may be. Because this isn't a sport, it's a game. I was involved in football, and obviously I have a great love of boxing and a great respect for these guys. And these guys need more care than a footballer needs about not giving a penalty. And it doesn't seem to operate that way. So it's a balance. Now, when you talk about Turki Al-Sheikh and maybe making a fight, what he'll do is make a differentiation about what Zuffa will do. But when you fight in my area of expertise, which is Zuffa now, and Ring Magazine, we'll make sure that our standards are higher, rather than him getting involved and asking the WBC or the WBA or the IBF or the IBO. There has to be some proper resolutions to these guys. If there is a real legitimate case, in this instance, it would clearly indicate that there is, the resolution has to be a resolution, which is not just a case of shrugging the shoulders and oh, okay, that's the way that one went. There has to be some commercial restitution for this kid in terms of either a compensation mechanism that is deployed or an immediate rematch that's ordered as a result of it. And that shouldn't be something difficult that can be achieved. So it comes to that sort of space, doesn't it? But it's really just about, and as we discussed earlier on the show, at the top of the show when we were talking about him coming on, it is about the consistency of standards. I mean, there is always going to be, in my view, more subjectivity in this sport than possibly there is in others, because there is an element of what you like that comes part. I know you're going to say, hang on, that doesn't factor into it. But there is an element of that, and you have to be realistic about it. And there is also an element of embracing technology to be able to bring into these equations. So you take out the errors that can be made on basis of human error. But when you've got something like this, there has to be the sport should want a resolution.
Yeah,
and
does it though? That's the key thing. Does it?
But this is why, with due respect to going off topic a second for you, Laurent, this is why Turkey was able to drive a bus through this sport. He couldn't drive it through. The Saudis couldn't do it in golf. They can't do it in football because it's too established. In this sport, it's the Wild West.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the recipients of the Wild West mentality are these guys. the least deserving of it. You know, I told you the other day, and it's less of an example, and it's the higher end of the food chain economically, but I went to see when Lennox beat Evander in MSG. That was a highway robbery. We've seen Jack Catterall. That was a robbery with Josh Taylor. But when you've got this guy against all the adversity, not being looked after by mainstream promoters, having to do it of his own volition and fighting in the back garden of someone else, and yet still gets disadvantaged, that goes against the very premise of what the sport should be about.
Your trainer's on the line. Dave Colwell, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm all right, guys. How are you?
Yes, obviously you can hear us talking about it, and Laurent's here too as well, mate. You must be... Listen, you can feel the disappointment in his voice, but you must be absolutely fuming as a person that is in the corner for him on a regular basis and helping him get to these particular points, only to have it snatched away by the opinions of three people ringside.
Oh, mate, it was an absolute mixture of emotions. You're upset for the kid. You've seen him sob his heart out in the changing room after everything it puts his work, his life, everything into the sport. And then also there's the rage because you just think, how can they do this? And you know what it is? To do it over and over and again because there's no comeback to them. You know, if a trainer, a boxer, or, you know, whoever it might be in the sport, anyone, a promoter puts on a bad show, interviewers are in the face, ask them questions, question them why is this, why is that? These judges, they can markify however the way they want to do it and walk off into sunset and they pop up on another show elsewhere. There's no consequences for them. And this is a real problem. Because they've got no consequences, they can do whatever they want, say what they want, judge it how they want, and just do it again next week.
Laurent, does it question your desire to be in the sport when you receive something like this?
Yeah. The last time this happened to me was in the amateurs, and the last time it happened was my last amateur fight. You know, it does dishearten me. You kind of lose faith in the sport. Yeah.
On the flip side to that, sorry, Capman. On the flip side to that, does it make you? Sometimes when you know where you go away from home, sometimes they almost say you leave it out, take it out of the judge's hands. Does it make you want to switch up your style a little bit? You're a boxer puncher, right? You box, and I love your style of boxing. But sometimes you almost feel like, okay, I've got to kind of go away from my style, and I've got to try and knock these kids out, which isn't necessarily your thing, right? Does that make you feel like you have to start doing that now? Because this could happen again and again and again.
It's hard to, really say because I won 10 of those 12 rounds.
Yeah.
And, I outboxed Ramirez.
Yeah.
I outboxed him. I outworked him. I beat him up in the inside. I was physically stronger than him. I was dictating the pace. What else do I need to do?
Mate, look at your face. There's not a mark on you, and we're only a few days...
You look at fights sometimes and you can look at them and be like, oh, this guy's putting a lot of pressure on. Okay, maybe we'll judge him for the pressure or, the work rate. And there's usually some type of...
In fact, that's an interesting question. Has any judge or anybody of an official status ever come into a dressing room pre-fight to you and said, this is how we're scoring the fight today?
No.
Nobody's in your entire career. Nobody's ever come up and said, "These are the rules of the game today."
No, they haven't. I mean, it's all bizarre. I mean, I'm upset. I'm angry. I'm really angry, and I'm fuming.
How far away? Obviously, you are going to put an appeal in. Is that already been put in?
Oh, it'll be in today or tomorrow.
Do you know the process in terms of how long it takes to hear anything back?
I couldn't tell you the process. I've been leaving it to the team, SJAM Boxing, Adam Morley, and they'll get that done for me, and hopefully we get some news on it soon.
Where are you at promotionally at the moment?
I haven't got a promoter.
Because you had a difficult time over the last few years, because what is it? You fought once this year so far, once last year, activity and stuff like that. What's the reasons behind that? Why are you not connected to somebody?
Well, once I lost against Steve Woodall, it was almost like I was the forgotten man. No one cared about me. Effectively on my own, only people that believed in me was my team. My team at the time. Well, my team now. The team previously that I had, I had to leave. I had to step away. I almost had, for the last year and a half, had to rebuild my own team from fresh. Just left me.
It takes an immense amount of mental strength to obviously do that first and foremost, and then you get a kick in the teeth like this. How does it make you feel?
It's not easy. I don't wish this on anyone, and I want it to stop. You know, we don't want this to happen again to anyone. This is our lives. You know, we put our life on the line when we go in the ring, and you know, all these risks, and then to get shafted like that is crazy.
Thanks for coming in, mate.
Cheers,
Listen,
I appreciate you.
I really hope that, one, the WBA see sense and do obviously uphold the challenge that you put towards them. But even if they don't, I just hope that somebody listening to this that does have a little bit of power in this game that can maybe make some fights and recompense you well for your abilities, because you're number 8 now with the Ring magazine, yeah?
I am number 8 now, yeah.
So that's a solid ranking with the Ring guys. And there's a lot of good fights that could be made in this particular division. You're feeling strong at this particular weight as well.
Oh, mate, I can't wait. And I just want to be part of these big fights now.
Fingers crossed.
You know, Ade's talking about my style. My style is adaptable. I'm a fighter of all terrain. And, you know, the better the fight, you'll see me perform better.
Top man.
Yeah.
Laurent Richards, thank you very much for coming in. Stick with us. You're listening to talkSPORT.
Obviously, we've got you on to talk about France and the French squad. How confident is the country of going all the way? Because every single person I speak to, and I say, who's going to win it? Everyone I've spoken to says France first.
When you look at the squad, I think we can say we favourites to win the tournament. But I don't know. I've got to say I'm a bit worried because I've watched the last few games and we are conceding goals, and I don't know, Mbappe looks like he's not in his best shape yet. And, you know, I think coming into the World Cup when you're heavy favourites is not easy. So I don't know. I think we'll be up there, but there's other teams that can win it as well.
France have got an outstanding forward line, haven't they, Neil? I mean, look at Elise's form, Dembele, Mbappe, Barcola, Doué. But like you says, is it the defence? Maybe a full-back, left-back, right-back? Do you think that's where they might let themselves down?
I think that the defense is a bit of a problem right now. I've seen a stat yesterday watching the game. I think in the last, they've conceded a goal in the last 5 or 6 games, and that hadn't happened in years, I think. So, which for me is not a good sign before tournament. And also, like you said, we've got a lot of amazing forwards and strikers, but I think the downside of it is also, can they defend? Can they help the team when is going to be needed? And I think we've seen this season Mbappe.
Get ready to get the ultimate football fan winning feeling with talkSPORT Win.
Because this summer, you and a mate could be jetting off to watch England versus Panama in New Jersey live at the FIFA World Cup 2026 with Adidas, including tickets, flights, accommodation and more.
Go to talksport.com/win to enter now, and you could be soaking up the incredible atmosphere at the FIFA World Cup 2026. For the chance to win every football fan's trip of a lifetime, enter now at talksport.com/win.
Boxing update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Sign up now at dazn.com/boxing.
We've got a DAZN Saturday Fight Night doubleheader this weekend. Live from Manchester, you can watch Beauty versus the Beast. No, it's not me against Simon Jordan. It's Eddie Hall against Tommy Fury in a heavyweight showdown.
Who's the Beauty and the Beast out of you two out of interest?
God knows. He's the Beauty.
Okay.
He's the Beauty. A serious heavyweight showdown featuring a remarkable £100 weight difference. Later that evening, you can watch pound for pound star, this is more like it, Jesse Bam Rodriguez returning to Arizona, aiming to make history by becoming a 3-weight world champion. You can join DAZN Ultimate and get 12 plus pay-per-views a year, including Fury vs Hall this weekend at no extra cost. No disrespect to Mr. Hall and Mr. Fury, who are going to be fighting this weekend. The top line there should have been the sell of Jesse Bam Rodriguez, because I'm sure both of you gentlemen would agree with me. He is one of the best on the planet. He's in my. I'm going to go out there. He's in my top 5.
Yeah.
When it comes to the pound for pound list,
100%. And I guess the biggest thing is obviously, look, he's going for his 3rd weight class. He's now moving up to bantamweight, which basically means, and the big story here is, he's now 1 weight class behind Inoue, which is, in that weight division, a Burger King. It's a Burger King meal, isn't it? Like, we just want to get him versus Inoue on, and let's see who really is the best in the lower weight classes. So hopefully Jesse can do the business. I have him sort of pound for pound top 4. He's a bit of a strange one, Inoue, because he just boxes, stops, then vanishes. Like, he doesn't do anything else. He vanishes. He goes to Japan quite a lot. He obviously sort of married with kids. And so he would be a nightmare for me, because I see superstar written all over him. But all he cares about is just getting in the ring, doing the job, and then vanishing until the next fight.
He's a star in Japan, though. Is Inoue?
He is.
Star in Japan.
No, I'm talking about Jesse Bam Rodriguez.
Oh, sorry, mate.
Did you see Jesse Bam Rodriguez when he was lined up to fight Sonny Edwards? Did you see him on this direction of travel? Did you see him going to these levels?
No, I think it was when he stepped up and... Was it Chocolatito that he beat? Who did he beat when he stepped up? He jumped up 2 weights.
I think he beat either Rungvisai or Cardenas.
Rungvisai. You're right. It was Rungvisai. He stepped up in 2 weight. He wasn't world champion. He stepped out of his weight division in 2 weights and won. And I was like, what the heck was that? And obviously he's come back down in weights and now he's building himself back up. When you watched him against Sonny, I always thought that fight was Bull versus Matador, right? But the Bull can also do a bit of Matador. He is incredible. His feet, he's a vicious little thing as well. He is absolutely one of the best fighters on the planet, and he's must-watch TV. Hence me saying that should have been the sell for the DAZN card this weekend. We're hearing a lot of noise about these that Frank and Eddie are going to go back at it on a 7v7 or a 5v5 or whatever it may be. Do you like the concept of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really interested in all the background noise about the promoters getting involved in one another. I'm interested in the quality of the fights. Now, if you're going to see perhaps Moses Atoman against Justice Hooney, if you're going to see Callum Smith against Josh Boatsy as a rematch, it was one of the best fights of the year last year, wasn't it? And so, yes, it interests me because I think it's a clever marketing ploy. It puts good fighters in. We see good fights. And, you know, every now and again you see a bit of humour between Frank and Eddie, which always has its resonance at times. But, you know, Queensbury dominate, don't they?
Yeah, they did. Can Eddie get a win on him? Can he get at least one? Out of the 7, can he get one?
Can't think of one off the top of my head. Callum Smith. I think Callum Smith against any light heavyweight that Frank's got, I think would win. I favour that. Unless Frank's going to sign Benavidez. I think Callum Smith will get a job done.
There you go, Addy. Thank you very much for your time. Simon, thank you very much for accommodating me today,
welcome,
mate.
mate.
Enjoy
Good to
your
see
trip to America, both of you gentlemen. You're listening to the White and Jordan Show here on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com. Thank you very much for your time this morning. It's Hooksby and Jacobs next.